X, and Rumble. Just type in a little 710K in US into that search bar and you'll find us there. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, crazy, and even if you put cheese on a hamburger before it's cooked, we'll welcome you onto the show. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history. Billy's just sitting there slightly nodding and laughing along.
That was an awful picture. We can talk about it. Yeah,
I want to talk about it, and I also want to talk about some of the greatest goofs that you remember from politicians. One of my very all-time favorites.
Yeah,
and I'm just going to throw this out there as a seed.
Yeah.
Gary Bauer flipping pancakes. Do you remember that?
I don't know if I remember that one.
He goes to flip a pancake.
Yeah.
He's running in the Republican primary for president, and he stumbles and falls back behind the stage while he's flipping.
Oh, that's awful. Oh, jeez. Oh, my God.
So what are some of your very favorite moments where politicians goofed? I'd love to hear it. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. We've got an absolutely jam-packed show today. Jack Phillips back in court. Big day today in the state of Colorado. We'll give you the details on that. Rich Sokol is going to join us in the 7 o'clock hour. You'll never guess where those pro-Hamas terrorist protesters are going these days. They're showing up at the homes of Jews in Greenwood Village.
Oh, you got to be kidding me. At a house?
At somebody's house on Father's Day, they organized a protest.
But what did they think the dad was responsible for?
It was the mom, actually.
The mom was responsible for something?
Yeah, she's a CU Regent. And because she's not doing enough to divest from Israel, we're going to show up at your house.
I'm sorry. It's a school in America, right? They're not sending arms, no troops. They don't have a single hostage. I don't think CU has a single hostage. Oh, good Lord. This is why we can't have nice things.
Rich Sokol,
that's what you're protesting.
Yeah, he was there. He's going to give us the details on that. And then Kansas launches a big lawsuit against Pfizer. What is that all about? They're going after the vaccine. This is going to be interesting. We'll dive into that in the 7 o'clock hour. 8 a.m. Deborah Flora is going to join us back in studio. The race, they've turned the corner. The straightaway is ahead. 1 week from today, we're going to know who won that race.
Yeah, we will. Have to see.
So Deb Flora will be joining us live in studio. And then Brad Yellen from United Hatzalah of Israel. These are the folks that provide the little ambulance services. They were the first people on the scene on October 7th.
Oh, wow.
Amazing organization. They can get to pretty much anybody in Israel within about 2 to 3 minutes.
That's incredible.
It is amazing what these guys have built. So Brad Yellen, good friend of the show, will be joining us in the 9 o'clock hour. A lot of fun yesterday. Really appreciated Valdemar Archuleta joining us and having that conversation. If you missed it, you definitely got to go back to 710knus.com. We talked to all things Dave Williams. We asked him point blank, can gay people feel comfortable within the Republican Party? We had a good conversation about that.
It was a really good conversation.
He said he's essentially ready to move on.
Yeah. He said he's okay. He'll get over this, and felt it was more Dave than the actual party saying anything about his group or his lifestyle or anything else. It was very interesting. It was a really, really good conversation. We appreciate him spending the entire hour here. That was really cool. An actual conversation about the most important policy issues taking place in Colorado that doesn't take place on other news agencies. So that's weird. Right after Channel 9 said we only gave one side of the story. Really weird. Really weird. How and happens. For the record, we still have had more opponents to Dave Williams on our show than proponents. But if you watch Channel 9, you'd think I'm the president of the Dave Williams fan club. But at least they ran the video. I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much, Kyle, and your producers. Thank you for running the video. I appreciate We'd like to welcome all those Channel 9 listeners. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. Phone lines are open. Text lines open. Give us a call. 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971. And let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 56 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the mid-70s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast. Coming up, our top story, President Biden set to unveil an executive action today granting temporary amnesty for hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants. Reports say the White House is set to launch a so-called parole-in-place plan for illegal immigrant spouses of U.S. citizens. The plan, yes, they have a plan, and it protects them from deportation, grants them work permits, and also could provide a pathway to citizenship. Oh, that's going to happen. And there's much, much more to come if you've been listening to this station the past day, especially on Mark Levin last night. So you ask yourself, all this regime does is think about non-citizens. Screw you and your families and Americans, black, white, brown, and everything in between. Don't ever forget what the racist in charge and this regime said over and over and over.
An unrelenting stream of immigration, nonstop. Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America.
I wonder why.
Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock.
Yeah, and he acts like it's organic. Well, you know, if you cheat the system,
don't talk about the great replacement theory, you crazy conspiracy theorist.
Don't talk about that. You guys are so racist. You're conspiracy experts. God, the man who eulogized one of the biggest KKK leaders of all time, Robert Byrd. You got to get out, Jeff. You got to get your family, everyone, friends, family, and vote. And if they hate you and they don't agree with you, keep on talking to them.
That's right.
Vote early and get out as many people as you can. It's unbelievable. Hey, I didn't get to this on Monday. Here's what some black leaders told former President Trump in Detroit.
President Trump, I'm so humbled that you would be here. President Obama never came to the hood, so to speak, right? President Joe Biden, he went to the big NAACP dinner, but he never came to the hood. So thank you. Thank you, Pastor.
Watch out.
Dude, it is changing, particularly among young black voters. Older black voters still with Biden, still with the Democrat Party, but there's been a 30-point shift among young black voters towards Donald Trump. Donald Trump has brought in, hey, look, Blake, I sat in these meetings with the RNC following 2012 when we're like, we're too white, we're too country club, we're too Mitt Romney, we're too stale. What do we need to do? Nobody said Donald Trump was going to change this. It was all, let's just build, let's go do an outreach effort. He has delivered what the RNC could have only dreamt.
No doubt.
I mean, he has brought in Hispanic and African-American voters in a way that the Mitt Romney, John McCain, George W. Bush wing of the party could never have. It is really an amazing moment in political history.
No, it is. It is. You look back at it. Yeah. I mean, 8 years ago or whenever, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I remember everyone talking about how white he is, just the typical white man. I get it. He's a billionaire from New York City. Okay, whatever. But guess what? A lot of brown and black people love him. They actually work for him, and he did a lot of great things for him. So the Colorado deputy is doing okay after a close call on Highway 71. He stopped to help a driver who broke down on the side of the road near Lyman. But as he was directing traffic around the scene, a car slammed into the back of his patrol vehicle. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Department posted dash cam video showing the sergeant and stranded driver jumping out of the way just in time. Be careful on the roads this morning and every day. There is a lot of traffic out there because it's vacation time. The man who opened fire in a Colorado Springs nightclub in 2022 will be sentenced today in a federal case. Anderson Aldridge is already serving life in prison on state charges for gunning down 5 people and injuring 22 others. 2 people are dead following another plane crash Monday afternoon. This one happened in Steamboat. It crashed in the West Acres mobile home park and burst into flames. Nobody on the ground was hurt. The plane was on its way to Ogden, Utah from Longmont. Dr. Robert Epstein, who voted for Joe Biden and an expert on Google and other tech companies interfering in elections, including the 2020 election, on with Louder with Crowder on Monday. Interesting.
Trump won only 5 out of the 13 swing states, which is why he lost in the Electoral College. When we factor Google out in 2020, Trump would have won 11 of the 13 swing states and easily won in the Electoral College. Moreover, we calculated that Google shifted at least 6 million votes to Joe Biden, whom I supported, by the way, although I regret that. But the point is, Google shifted at least 6 million votes to Joe Biden. Think about that. By how many votes did Joe Biden win the popular vote? Well, I think it was around 7 million or so. If you factor Google out of that election, the popular vote itself would have been virtually tied.
That is amazing to me. Go to americasdigitalshield.com. americasdigitalshield.com for all this information. They do great work.
It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.
And they've won a record 18 NBA World Championships. They beat the Mavericks last night, 106-88. And Parker, Colorado's own Derek White wins his first title. A lot of his teeth were knocked out along the way in the playoffs, but he says it was worth it.
Man, this is what we work for. I mean, I'll lose all my teeth for a championship, and so I'll get it fixed, and I'm going to enjoy this one.
All right, good for him. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 54 in Littleton, 52 in Lakewood, 56 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's terrific Tuesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
710 5-day forecast. Much cooler weather for Denver in the Front Range over the next 48 hours as a cold front comes in out of the northern Rockies. We'll stay in the 70s today and only going to be on the low end of the 70s tomorrow. So a good 20 to 25 degrees colder than the last few days. Isolated afternoon and evening thunderstorms possible today and on Wednesday. Warming back to the 80s Thursday through Saturday with afternoon and evening thunderstorms. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
There's a scandal brewing. A tweet was deleted by a major U.S. senator.
Yeah, I heard. It was funny.
Scandal in the Democrat Party. U.S. Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer was ready to man the grill on Father's Day, but couldn't handle the heat when a slew of food critics on social media questioned his skills with a spatula and a patty. The Brooklyn-born senator initially posted a photo to X of himself in front of a grill with burger patties and hot dogs and an ear-to-ear smile. This from the New York Post. Our family has lived in apartment buildings all of our years, but my daughter and her wife just bought a house with a backyard, and for the first time, we're having a barbecue with hot dogs and hamburgers on the grill, Schumer tweeted. Father's Day heaven, exclamation point. But commentators were quick to grill the New York legislator and wondered if a piece of cheese on a patty was placed there prematurely. Chuck, I love you, man. But you put the cheese on after the burger is cooked. What he did was, there's a picture. You got hot dogs on the left side of the grill. You've got hamburgers on the right. And it's very clear in the picture that the hamburgers are not fully cooked.
Yeah.
They're pretty raw.
And the weird part is that there are grill marks, though, on the hot dogs, and you don't put them on at the same time because the hot dogs cook quicker. So I don't know. Is this round 2? Again, I love when they do the grill pictures, but add a little flames underneath it. I mean, it makes it more authentic. It just the patties are not even close to being done, and you don't put the cheese on at that point. They just
got started.
Yeah.
They just got put on there. And to your point, there's no flame.
Yeah.
That grill is way too clean.
Yeah. I like clean grills. I mean, I can appreciate.
Are you a clean grill guy?
Yeah, I really, really like the idea of the clean grill. But the problem for me is and looking at the picture right now is the dogs are done. What are you doing? I mean, or is he doing the dogs first? Which again would be weird because those cook quicker. Why would you then do those and then set them aside? What you do is you'd cook the burgers 3/4 of the way through, set them over to the side, bring the dogs on, and then close the lid and allow the ambient heat to finish up the burgers, so your burgers and dogs would complete at the same time. That's what you do.
Yeah.
But evidently not. But again, Chuck said he's never had one before. However, he's got a large. I think that's the Weber. He's got a larger version of the Weber that I've got. That's similar, only because the knobs that he's got on the bottom are the same ones in the knobs. I just noticed that the same ones in the front knobs of my grill. So I'm guessing that's just the larger size of the Weber, which is again a weird one because if it's just the daughter and her wife. That's a big grill for 2 people. The size down.
But then, they got money. They got quality.
Yeah, I know.
Here's my favorite
one.
Comment on it all. They zoomed in on the cheeseburger with the raw patty with cheese on top. And it just said, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
That is smart. That is good. And the problem is that as it cooks, the cheese is going to get down into the grill. It's going to burn. It's going to go away. Yeah, it's
you
just
got
not
to
going to
flip
work.
it. Now, I've always heard you're only supposed to flip the meat once.
Depends. I mean, if flipping it more often lets the juices drop out, but if you've let it too long on one side and you flip it on the other side, again, it's a lot of personal preference. You don't flip it a lot. No, don't keep flipping and flipping and flipping. That doesn't work at all. But if it's not quite done yet, you need to flip it back over. Go right ahead. That's not going to do anything horrible to it. And then again, the last 30 seconds for the cheese. And then a lot of times you can just put the cheese on and then turn the grill off, move the patties to the other side of the thing, but put the on the cool side. I don't know if you do. Do you warm all the burners or do you run a hot side and a cold side?
It depends
when you're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's cheeseburgers like that, it probably everything. But if you're trying to slow cook a steak,
then you gotta have a hot side
and
cold
you
side.
don't want to get a crusty outside to it or chicken or anything like that.
So, but that's bad. That's just bad. I also don't like the color of his burger patty. It's a little too brownish. So I mean, they've obviously just started.
Part of the response was, these are vegan burgers and we don't need to cook them. But that's not going to fly.
Disgusting. That's awful. That's not a selling point. Stop it. That's not. Look, these look like meat patties. You don't have to cook them. That's not helping.
One commentator wrote, Chuck Schumer is actually doing better than me. Today, my grill had a grease fire and destroyed my Father's Day ribeye.
Oh, that's awful.
Have you ever had that happen?
That is horrible. No, I've never had it.
Because you cook on a clean grill.
Well, yeah. That's because years ago I did have one that did catch somewhat of fire and I had to pull everything off and nothing was cooked properly. And so ever since then, just I cleaned the grill afterwards. Yeah.
Schumer deleted the tweet and photo following the onslaught of criticism, though his initial Father's Day message from Sunday morning remained Happy Father's Day to all the dads
Well,
out there.
that's nice. But even that, why would you do it when you're starting the burgers? I mean, you've got to have it in the process. That's just a silly part. And I'm still really bothered by the fact that his dogs are done before he even started the patties. That really bothers me. Because
Does it
the dogs are
bother
gonna
you
suck.
that this guy is the president of the Senate?
Oh, absolutely. Bothers me on a daily basis. Like, he's a clown. He should not be in that kind of. It seems like a nice enough guy, but he should not be making the decisions. He really, really bothers me. My favorite video that came out of January 6th is from Nancy Pelosi's daughter. And that's the point in which people are in the Capitol and Nancy's trying to figure stuff out and they're calling people. And to her credit, she is in a leadership role and you can see her making decisive decisions. And Schumer's standing next to her and he's like, and I called this guy. And she looks at him like, not now, Chuck. Shut up. The adults are talking. I mean, I don't remember exactly what she says to him, but she's like, not now, Chuck. I mean, it was as if the mother is looking at the kids like, the adults are talking, hun. You sit there and play with your iPad and we'll come and talk to you later. She just like totally dismissed him. It was so funny because he wanted to be part of the decision making. Look, I'm doing this too. And she's like, shut up, Chuck. I appreciated that more than you know.
Can you do anything as a politician anymore and not get busted for it? I mean, people were
Probably not.
looking through the placement of the cheese.
Yeah.
It is amazing what people find in this stuff. And you have these moments where politicians do really stupid things. One thing that I think he should have done is capitalize on it.
Yeah.
So one of the best moments of political response to a failure or a response to a political failure was Marco Rubio's water bottle.
Oh, yeah. That was a good
So
one.
he did the response to the State of the Union, and you all remember it. And it's happened to me too. The very first time I was ever on TV, and for whatever reason, there's something that clicks in your brain that sucks up all the saliva in your mouth.
Yep.
And you can't talk at all.
Yeah.
The first time I was ever on Fox, this thing happened. The red light turned on and it was like, whoop.
It's a psychological thing. It's the same reason that you saw some of the weird verbal tics with Katie Britt in the State of the Union response. And it's funny because my wife spent, 15, 16 years in public relations with State Farm. And she used to have to train agents. She would go out and do media training. And she's like, this is this. And as soon as Katie Britt got on, she goes, oh, she's experiencing A, B, C. And she goes, watch, this is going to happen to her. 30 seconds later, she started doing it.
Yep.
Yeah, it was exactly what it is.
And the only way to get over it is practice and time and more time in front of the
Yeah.
media and stuff
And
like that.
also, if you know it's going to happen, some of the expectation of, hey, this is it. So you know that it's going to happen so you can turn it around. But yeah, you've got to know what you're getting into.
Rubio's mouth dries up and he's desperately trying to find a water bottle that's off camera. And he's been told and coached, do not stop looking at the camera. So he's got this awkward searching hand looking for a water bottle.
Where it is.
And then he quickly drinks and then he tries to go back. It was so awkward. But that night, within like 2 hours, you could buy the Marco Rubio water bottle for a donation to his campaign. Billy, what do you think Chuck should have done here? I'm just totally putting you on the spot.
I would have done
if he wanted to capitalize on this.
I would have done the Chuck Schumer spatula and the Father's Day grill spatula. That's what I would have done. And then on it, it said, and on it, I would have put on, and if you could, on the actual, the spatula, the little flat part that flips the burgers, or on the handle, you put cheese goes on last. That's all I would have done. That's all I would have done. And that would have been fun.
Oh,
that could have been
Billy.
good. Yeah.
I knew I could just toss that up and let you hit it, a home run on
Thank
that.
you.
That is brilliant. Absolutely. All right. When we come back, I want to get into a few news items here. One, the Jack Phillips case coming up, but also the Biden administration to give legal protections to undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens. New York Times reporting on what to expect from the Biden administration today. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Bible verse of the day today was that pure religion, undefiled religion, is the care for orphans and widows. And this is one of the reasons I adore Gay Ribble. You know her name. She's been part of the real estate scene in Colorado for years. Her Empower Home team is a wonderful team to highlight. But Gay Ribble is someone with tremendous values. She gives back to orphans in the state of Colorado because she was an orphan herself. and she wants those kids to try to find their forever families. So she supports them. She helps them. So you're supporting somebody that's giving back to the community. Number one. Number two, she's a delightful person to work with. Look, selling a home is an incredibly stressful thing to do. You want to work with somebody that is going to be delightful through that entire stressful operation. She is a radiant light. Believe me, we host her here in the studio. Number three, she is a pro. Listen to this. She gets her clients an average of $30,000 more when they sell their house because she has a huge database of over 14,700 pre-approved buyers ready to spend some money. Look, we all have friends and family members that are real estate agents, but this is a business transaction for your family. You need to get the most, and Gay Ribble can deliver that to you. Listen to this offer. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team will sell your house for 100% of the asking price, or Gay will pay you the difference. It's an offer you simply cannot refuse. Get 100% of your asking price guaranteed with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Give them a call today, 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. All right. When we come back, we'll get into Jack Phillips. He's in before court again today. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710.
Some good text messages coming in this morning. We're talking Chuck Schumer's grill fiasco. Jacqueline, Nebraska. You get the best taste on grilled burgers and steaks with the buildup of the charcoal inside the grill. You don't want to clean it. Leave it alone. You'll get a wonderful flavor after a while with all that char.
Yeah, that for charcoal, absolutely. I was writing back to Jacqueline right now. My dad was a charcoal guy, and I appreciate it. And charcoal, in my opinion, tastes better. Takes too long. I don't have that kind
of patience. Does. And what we've learned living out on the Eastern Plains is you can't cook with gas because of the wind. It just blows it out. So you almost have to use charcoal.
Wow. Because it just, for me, the idea of normally when I'm grilling, etc., what is going on in my life is too chaotic for me to plan an hour beforehand to start the charcoal.
Let alone those guys that are like 12 hours from now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll have some pig butt.
Yeah, I normally can't do that. I mean, if I'm going to lean into that, if I'm going to spend hours cooking, I'm going to get into like a very detailed recipe rather than starting the process that I'm going to spend. It's something that I'm going to spend hours doing. And I have a couple of those recipes that I do at home that when I'm in the mood, and it takes 2, 3, 4 hours to execute everything. But I never remember to start the charcoal on time. And I'm also always unsure sometimes about heat and temperature. And it's much easier for me. Again, I don't think it tastes better. Much easier for me to control the heat on gas than it is on charcoal. So that's why I've gone with gas, but mostly because it's quicker. That's 90% of it.
8422. Chuck didn't even know the difference. I bet he's never cooked anything in his life, let alone on a grill.
Oh, I'm certain he's cooked some things. I'm sure he could do, he could do toast. I'm sure he knows how the microwave works. Oh, yeah.
I think somebody brings him his meal. He eats in the Senate dining room every single day. And
I'm just figuring he's probably do toast or something in the morning, just because. Got to be able to do that. And he probably knows how the microwave works. Beyond that, he probably has no idea how the oven works. No clue.
My son yesterday earlier this week learned to cook grilled cheese, which is a big thing in our family. We're a big grilled cheese family.
Okay.
So much so that my dad has Polaroid pictures of the most perfect grilled cheese sandwiches he's ever made. So it's funny bonding between my dad and my son who love grilled cheese, and they're sharing pictures back and forth of the quality of their grilled cheese sandwiches.
That's funny. Okay, since you guys spend so much time in it, what's the secret? How do you warm up? How do you warm up the pan?
There's nothing.
What do you use?
We're so basic, man.
No, come on.
Velveeta cheese and butter and bread.
Really?
That's it.
Oh.
There's nothing. We're so basic.
Do your kids like mayo?
No, but not on grilled cheese. I've seen some people do that.
But
that's
lightly,
weird.
A real light. It adds a little bit of creaminess. I mean, it's almost like a butter, but you don't put it on there as if you're covering it in mayo. It's just barely any, just a little bit because of it. Yeah. The other one that's really interesting to do is if you actually use a little bit of lard instead of the butter. That changes the flavor profile as far as the bread. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Next level stuff. All right, let's dive into the news you've got today. Jack Phillips, he's got a case today before the Colorado Supreme Court. If you don't know Jack Phillips, he's a well-known to Americans as Christian cake artist who has been targeted and harassed in court for more than a decade. Alliance Defending Freedom is defending Jack in his third legal case, brought by an attorney who requested a gender transition cake in 2017. What happened? Well, basically, this person named Autumn Scardina, the day the decision came down from the U.S. Supreme Court that stood with Jack, if you remember that, called up to start another case. They wanted a gender transition cake where it was blue on the outside and pink on the inside. So when you cut into it, it was like, I might look like a boy, but I'm actually a girl on the inside, all that stuff. And Jack refused to do it. Now, I've known Jack for years. I've hosted Jack on the stages at the Western Conservative Summit. Jack is a wonderful, wonderful man. He doesn't want to participate in messages he disagrees with. Bottom line. I one time asked him for a Halloween cake, and he's like, no, Jeff, I don't do a Halloween cake. We were talking back and forth. I just said, Jack, would you do a Halloween? No, I'm not going to do a Halloween cake. And I'm a Bible-believing evangelical Christian. So it had nothing to do with the person he was serving. It's about the message that he's serving.
Yeah.
So
seems reasonable.
What's at stake here? Well, last year's SCOTUS decision, Supreme Court decision on 303 Creative now affects free speech issues like Jack. And so Alliance Defending Freedom will be down at the Colorado Supreme Court today. They're going to host a press conference if you want to go down. Oral arguments start at 9 a.m. Press conference will follow those oral arguments. You can also send a message, standing with Jack, if you want to tweet or post on Instagram, Facebook, X. Just use Justice for Jack as the hashtag out there, and you can stand with Jack Phillips today. We'll see how the oral arguments go. My guess, though, knowing how it's gone for him for the other two cases, lose, all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and then you win.
Yeah, pretty much how it works here.
So I talked to the LGBT community, probably their chief strategist one time. We went out to lunch. He's a friend, and I just said to him, what were you guys thinking with Jack? And he goes, dumbest mistake the LGBT community has ever made.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He goes, we thought we were going to get this guy that we're going to pull out, and he's going to be like, oh, I hate gay people. And, and he was going to, stand with the Westboro Baptist Church. And they were going to have this great example of a guy that we need
that hates gay
law
people
to step in because of these horrible gay people. And they literally found the nicest guy in Colorado.
Yeah.
And we're trying to beat up on him. And he's stood for his faith through all this. He's not going to move at all. He's been legally right because he had good legal teams. And, they continue to go after him. And at a certain point, it's backfiring on him.
Yeah. The core argument that I've always had is because you have other businesses that do similar things that are available, you're not prevented from his particular product. You're not prevented from getting a gay wedding cake. You're not prevented from getting a transition cake. Those products do exist. And the other part that I look at is he has decided not to bake wedding cakes anymore. So he doesn't offer those. So you can't force him to go ahead and do it. And when a business is constraining their product line based on these type of things, I have a hard time disagreeing with them. I mean, Jack obviously has the convictions that he's doing this because of genuine religious belief. There are a lot of people out there that would make the decision, regardless of religious belief, to just be able to sell the cake because the business needs to make money. He has made the opposite decision. He is constraining his ability to make money based on his religious beliefs. That should be okay, and especially if it's not done necessarily out of hate, because he doesn't say, I don't want these type of customers coming in. You're more than welcome to come in as a customer, but I'm not going to do this for you, which seems reasonable because I believe that what originally the idea was, that you pointed out, that Jack Phillips was going to be, I hate gay people. I don't want to have any gay people in here. I don't want to make any cakes for anybody gay, but I have to make them because I don't know who they are. But the way I can fight them is by not doing their gay wedding cakes. Grr. But no, he's like, I understand. I disagree with it, but that's okay. But I'm just not going to celebrate that part of your lifestyle. That's okay.
So if you're gay and you want a brownie, here you go. If you're gay and you want a cookie, here you go.
Yeah.
If you're an evangelical and want a Halloween cake, no.
Yeah, not at all. That's fine. That's just fine. Yeah, especially because there are other alternatives that are available.
And it gets into artwork as well, because it's a form of art. That's how he considers it. And I remember in the 2016 Western Conservative Summit, we were looking at photographers. It was the first summit I was leading. And we were trying to hire great photographers. And we were recommended this one guy. We outreached to him. We explained what the event was. And he's just like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't agree with you guys. I'm not a fan of social conservative values, and I don't want to use my artistic talent to support your event. And I was like, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. Okay.
And we moved on. The idea you would want to force somebody to provide something that they don't want to provide artistically is insane to me.
Yeah. I just saw something that went viral in the last couple of weeks. Maybe the listener has seen this as well. The woman, I want to say she's in New York. She may not be. The woman that is a violinist at weddings. Yeah. And she is tremendously talented. Started out in orchestra, middle school, went up through high school, went to it for college. In this area of the country, she is one of the top 3 violinists at weddings anywhere. She has been recommended #1 by a number of those bridal wedding magazines for years, like 6 years in a row. She's #1. Recently, one of the bullies from high school reached out to her and said, hey, it's great to catch up with you. Look at this. Wouldn't it be so sweet if you could come and play at my wedding? And she's like, not really. I don't really want to. And but she said, okay, but she didn't want to be necessarily rude to the woman. And she laid out Yeah.
I'm booked that weekend.
Yeah. She laid out the fee and she goes, this and this and this. This is kind of what it was. And the person comes back, it's like, oh, maybe you get a friend discount in this. And she's like, no. And don't you remember that you treated me poorly in high school and everything else, and came back? And she goes, I have no interest in doing this. And the woman, the bully from high school, lost it and got very, very angry.
Acted like a bully?
Yes, exactly.
Shocking!
Yes, got really, really angry, acted out, tried to do some stuff social media wise towards the violinist, got other people involved, and guess what?
Stupid little life do you live?
Here's what gets even better. This just happened I just found this last 48 hours. The fiance found out about his new bride's behavior and canceled the wedding. She's no longer getting married.
That is actually quite smart.
Yep. And
because you don't want that person to be the mother of your children.
Not at all. And he reached out in part to the violinist saying, thank you.
You want to go on a date?
You showed me, because he's like, you showed me that this person that I had been, and he outlines these things that had happened. He goes, I was just too blind to see what she was doing and all these ways that she was controlling my life and being a bully, and I didn't see it. And thank you.
Get out.
Yeah.
Much better decision.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah,
fascinating story. Well, on that point, someone texted in 5424. When is Jack going to file harassment on these bullies? So in the second case, they did. And they went after John Hickenlooper in his personal capacity.
Yeah.
Because it was his Colorado Civil Rights Commission and their appointments, and some of those commissioners that were doing this and continuing to allow this to happen. And when ADF showed up and started really pressing back, then those guys backed off, and they're like,
yeah. But and I have kind of a thing where I question the motivations of Robin Scardina. Autumn Scardina. Sorry about that. Yeah, because the reason they went into that cake was specifically to get Jack in trouble.
Yes,
that's the part that annoys me.
Yep.
It's not the idea of let's test this. It was, I'm going to go in and do something that I'm pretty sure he's not going to do, and that annoys me. That annoys me to know.
And we do test cases like that.
Oh,
so
sure.
one of the best things that happened in Jack's original case was when a guy named Bill Jack went around and asked people to build clearly anti-gay cakes with scripture on them.
Yep.
And when he was denied, he made the argument before the Colorado Civil Rights Commission that he was denied because of his religion.
Yeah.
So you're willing to bake a cake. All right, I want you to put on the cake scripture about God condemning homosexuality.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't feel comfortable. And he's like, you're rejecting me because of my Christian faith. Went to the Colorado Supreme Court, and the Colorado Supreme Court's like, no, there's no problem here. Or sorry, the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. Colorado Civil Rights Commission said no problem. And then they used that as an example at the U.S. Supreme Court that the Civil Rights Commission was selectively prosecuting. So fascinating. All right. Want to give you just a brief update. We're going to get into this more tomorrow because this news is just breaking. Biden to give legal protections to undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens. Undocumented spouses of American citizens will be shielded from deportation, provided work permits, and given a pathway to citizenship. According to officials briefed on the plan, President Biden on Tuesday will announce sweeping new protections for hundreds of thousands of immigrants who have been living in the United States illegally for years but are married to American citizens. It's just more of the same from Joe Biden and the fact that he's turning kind of a blind eye to illegal immigration. Not even a blind eye, but a kind of embracing it, allowing it to happen.
Yeah, this is a
Is that
giveaway
what you
for
think
voters.
Biden's doing?
It's a giveaway for voters. He's trying to show up some Latino voters. I mean, again, I understand why and what he's looking at for it, and I'm not unpersuaded by the idea that individuals that are here that have a spouse in America, because again, whenever their cases come up, it's going to be adjudicated. You're married and you have a child here. So,
yeah,
or
right.
the idea
are those people often sent back?
No,
I don't know.
Almost never.
I was going to say, so yeah. All right, we'll get into this and more with You Choose the News coming up next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, Billy, let's do You Choose the News.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time for everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. We have scoured the interwebs for mere moments this morning to find really, really dumb stories about us humans, giving them fake radio news headlines to play this stupid game. Why? It's a lot of fun, and the people in charge have no idea we are doing it. And as a reminder, do not tell them. They don't wake up for about another 8 minutes. So we got about 8 minutes here. Jeff and Blake Olson from our newsroom. And we are proudly not sponsored by Roll 'em Out Shelves. They are a wonderful mother-son team that will come to your house and give you a free in-home estimate to solve all of your clutter needs. They did an amazing job in my mom's 2 bathrooms. It's an absolute dream. But the one thing, don't tell them about You Choose the News. They're a proud supporter of 710 KNUS. Not of anything as ridiculous as this. Roll'emOutShelves.com to schedule your free estimate. Alrighty, gentlemen, here we go. Your headlines today. Headline number 1, imaginary contest. Headline number 2, an excellent political shift. Headline number 3, sorry, but it's your fault. And headline number 4, quick, have another cup. Mr. Hunt, your choice, sir.
Quick, have another cup.
Yes, quick, have another cup, especially if you're having the wonderful hot bean water we refer to as coffee. Yes, coffee actually can reduce your risk of mortality. A new study is showing that people who sat down for 6 hours or more today and had at least 1 cup of Java throughout that time were 58% more likely to be alive than someone that sat for 6 hours a day and drank absolutely no coffee at all. So you have almost a 60% extra life expectability if you go ahead and drink
Billy,
coffee.
I'm 42, and I've had those studies bounce back and forth in my head my entire life. You drink coffee, you're going to die. You drink coffee, you're going to live.
Yeah, the worst one are the eggs. We can't take eggs, no eggs, yes
butter,
eggs, yes
remember
eggs,
margarine,
no eggs.
Then it's not butter.
Yes.
I can't believe it's not butter.
So I don't know what it is, but they're saying that if you're at least sedentary, that if you go ahead and you have a cup of coffee, it'll do good stuff for you. So at least that's what I'm telling myself when I'm having the third one this morning.
Go live your life.
Yes.
You're going to die when you die.
Exactly. All right, Blake Olson from the news department. Imaginary contest, an excellent political shift, or sorry, but it's your fault.
Let's go with excellent political shift.
Yeah, this is an excellent political shift. Maybe this is something that America needs to try. There is a brand new member of the European Parliament from Cyprus. He's a 24-year-old that's a YouTuber prankster. Yes, they have elected to the European Parliament a 24-year-old YouTube prankster. Yes, now again,
something worth watching in government.
Exactly. Now the European Parliament has like 750 members, so it's a complete an S show. So it doesn't do anything at all. However, the idea of just electing influencers, I kind of like that. I kind of love the idea to get all these older politicians out and let's just have. I mean, come on. I would vote for Mr. Beast for president. I would absolutely. Why not? Exactly. Think about all the free stuff he'd give us once we got into the office.
He'd come up with contests. So my kids love Mr. Beast. We watch it all the time. It would be like, how many days can you? No, I'll give you $10,000 a day for every day you can stay locked together in the legislature.
Exactly.
That would be a far better use of their time than actually passing the bills they are.
Oh, it would be. It would be. And, there's so many other contests that you put the legislatures through. There's so many things you could solve. I just think that, it doesn't matter. The problem for me is we understand that if we elected an entire legislative body of influencers, it's not going to go well. But have you been paying attention to what's happening now? It can't get worse. I mean, really, I can't imagine they could screw up things any worse than what's going on right now. So it's worth a shot. I'm just saying. Vote YouTube. Yeah. All righty. Jeff Hunt, your final choice this morning. Imaginary contest or sorry, but it's your fault?
Sorry. It's your fault.
Sorry, it's your fault. That's what the Laredo Police Department are telling a young teenage pedestrian lately. Whoops, I know we hit you with our car. It's your fault. Yes, recently, about 11 o'clock in the evening, a Laredo police cruiser smacked right into a female pedestrian as she was walking down the street. And she was taken to the local hospital, non-threatening life injuries, but then promptly given a ticket for jaywalking because she shouldn't have been in the street in the first place. Yep, that'll teach her. Again, okay, Jeff, Blake, this is a bit excessive. And the reason I say that is because They hit her with the car. I'm guessing she's not going to be in the road in the future because of the car that hit her. I think she's learned her lesson, but maybe that's me. I don't know. I'm silly.
Let's add a ticket on top of that.
Exactly.
Make you really remember this.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you choose the news. Thanks, gentlemen, for playing along.
All right, pro-Palestinian protesters showing up in front of people's homes. That's up next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. And they hit her with the car.
Seven a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on this Tuesday, June 18th on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and crazy. And believe me, we're about to get into some crazy. Protesters showing up outside of the home of a Board of Regent, Ilana Spiegel. She's a CU Board of Regent, and they're showing up now outside of her house. Can you believe that? Interrupting her Father's Day with her family. Mobs of pro-Hamas terrorists and protesters organizing outside of her home. Just unbelievable. We're going to talk to Rich Sokol, who was there, about what happened and what he saw after the news with Blake Olson. We're going to get into a whole lot of stuff this morning you're not going to want to miss. We're going to cover this new Kansas Attorney General lawsuit targeting Pfizer over whether or not the vaccine was truly, quote, safe and effective. A 145-page lawsuit going after Pfizer. We'll get into those details. Is this going to launch something new? You're going to see a whole bunch of these. I saw yesterday, Billy, a attorney's lawsuit recruitment advertisement for whether or not your kids are addicted to social media.
Oh, geez. How would they prove that? That'd be weird.
I guess with any other addiction.
The weird part is it's based on that. It's based on an engagement model. It's like with in Blake's news last hour, he was talking about the Google people, and they're talking about how they're saying that Google manipulates that, etc. But what they're talking about, the mechanism they're talking about, is the base mechanism that they use to engage gamblers. And almost every organization uses it. In fact, video games use it, TikTok uses it, social media uses it. Yep. Yeah, that's how you manipulate engagement. Advertising uses it. All of them does. And so it's just weird that a couple of groups go, we've discovered this happens. No, that's how things work. That's how the world works. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how this goes, especially on that, because I have 4 kids on the social media thing.
Yeah.
And you take their phones away.
Yeah. Yeah, restrict access. That's exactly what it is.
There's 2 ways to do that. One, there's all these little apps, Family Link, Bark, those types of things that you can actually restrict their hours.
Yeah.
So they hit, for instance, 2 hours. That's typically what we give, 2 hours a day. Once you hit it, doesn't matter if you were listening to music, you were reading, you were playing video games, that phone's off.
Done. Yep.
Or you just take the phone away.
Yeah.
So how kids suing for social media. Anyways, we can get into that on a different day. That's just, that's something else. Deb Flora is going to join us in the 8 o'clock hour, and Brad Yellen with United Hatzalah. The first responders responding in October 7th attack by Hamas will be joining us in the 9 o'clock hour. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, real quick, Jeff and Bill, one thing I'm noticing, we always talk about the teenagers and the kids with the phones. I'm noticing at church lately, this is like the 10th time it's happened. Senior citizens, man, they're keeping their phones on during church.
Oh yeah,
and I'm hearing the ringers, and I'm like, wait a minute, are we gonna have to crack down on seniors with their phones?
Because it's not on a low setting.
No,
you hear those notifications.
Absolutely,
Bing.
And
not at all.
So some of the tunes you hear come out of it is pretty funny. The pastor laughs every time.
Oh, that's great.
It's usually someone 75 or older. It's pretty funny. So
and it's buried deep in the purse.
Yep.
And they can't get to it.
And when you open the purse, it gets louder. Yes.
Right. Absolutely.
Hey, Bill, on that, Blake, Father's Day, this was cool. We walked into church, and each dad got a mug root beer, beef jerky, and popcorn to enjoy during the church service.
Jeez,
really?
That's nice.
Oh,
nice.
Man, that's
God,
cool.
that's the thing for me is
cool.
Our church wouldn't do that because nobody wants to vacuum afterwards. Say to how us dads eat. So I'm not vacuuming. You vacuum. I'm not vacuuming. Yeah, that's probably why it was pulled. Yeah,
we
I'm a
would
little
make
jealous.
a mess. No, I am jealous too. That's great. 57 and sunny outside in Denver. Expecting highs in the mid 70s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, President Biden set to unveil an executive action today granting temporary amnesty for hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants. Wow, what a shocker. Reports say the White House is set to launch a so-called parole-in-place plan for illegal immigrant spouses of U.S. citizens. This is only the beginning. Conservatives are ready to fight this. Have you heard the ridiculous Biden TV commercial? Here's a few seconds.
This election is between a convicted criminal who's only out for himself and a president who's fighting for your family.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this.
Yes, he does. He approves it. A convicted criminal who's only in it for himself. Should say a president who should be a convicted criminal and in it for himself and his crime family. Mitch Landrieu from Biden's staff on the black vote.
Well, first of all, it's going to be a very close election. Every one of them is. Secondly, there's no universe in which Donald Trump is going to get 21% of the black vote.
Not so fast.
President Trump, I'm so humbled that you would be here. President Obama never came to the hood, so to speak, right? President Joe Biden, he went to the big NAACP dinner, but he never came to the hood. So thank you. Thank you, Pastor.
All right.
You remember when he went to the hood? Remember that
Yes,
audio?
to the hood. Yes. Yeah.
He
what
doesn't
is
just
that,
come
Brooklyn?
to the hood.
To the
Trump comes to the
hood.
hood.
Yeah. I think let's see, Atlanta. If he goes to the hood in Atlanta when he's down there, that would be huge. Atlanta,
I would,
or
absolutely,
maybe, yeah, no doubt.
And
Or
then show up
Memphis.
to the debate in an orange jumpsuit. Just troll them. Just troll them.
That's a good idea. I love that. 2 people are lucky to be alive after they found themselves trapped in the basement of a burning home in Commerce City. Fire crews arrived at the scene and heard someone calling for help. Firefighters noticed 2 people stuck in the basement and rescued them by pulling them out through the home's window wells. A skier is in the hospital after he fell at least 1,000 feet near Netherland on Sunday. 2 off-duty firefighters just happened to be nearby when they saw the man slip, plunge about 1,000 to 2,000 feet, and hit a rock ledge near South Arapahoe Peak. The skier was airlifted from the scene by helicopter, and there's no word on his current condition. 2 people are dead following a Monday afternoon plane crash in Steamboat. It crashed in the West Acres mobile home park and burst into flames. Nobody on the ground was hurt. The plane was on its way to Ogden, Utah from Longmont. Colorado deputy is doing okay after a close call on Highway 71. He stopped to help a driver who broke down on the side of the road near Lyman, but as he was directing traffic around the scene, a car slammed into the back of his patrol car, and the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department posted dash cam video showing the sergeant and stranded driver jumping out of the way just in time. So be careful on the roads this morning and every day this summer. There's a lot of traffic out there.
It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.
Celtics win at 18th NBA World Championship, 106-88 over the Mavericks, and Parker, Colorado's own Derek White wins his first title. A lot of his teeth knocked out along the way in the playoffs, but he says it was worth it.
Man, this is what we work for. I mean, I'll lose all my teeth for a championship, and so I'll get it fixed, and I'm going to enjoy this one.
All right, good for him. 52 in Boulder, 55 in Aurora, 57 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Terrific Tuesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The 710 5-day forecast, much cooler weather for Denver in the Front Range over the next 48 hours as a cold front comes in out of the northern Rockies. We'll stay in the 70s today and only going to be on the low end of the 70s tomorrow. So a good 20 to 25 degrees colder than the last few days. Isolated afternoon and evening thunderstorms possible today and on Wednesday. Warming back to the 80s Thursday through Saturday with afternoon and evening thunderstorms. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Over the weekend, pro-Hamas protesters, anti-Israel protesters, now taking it to another level. They're showing up at the house of CU Regent Ilana Spiegel, who's Jewish and the descendant of Holocaust survivors, facing a mob on Father's Day outside her home. This is crossing a line. And to give us details on what happened is friend of the show, Rich Sokol. Rich, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, morning.
Hey, guys. Good morning. It's good to be with you. I just heard you say it was a terrific Tuesday. Well, I can tell you in my neighborhood, it wasn't a super Sunday, but
yeah, was that near?
Tell us about
yeah,
this.
What happened? Give us the breakdown.
So we had got a notice on just late Thursday. There's a group, SDS, Students for a Democratic Society. Some of your listeners may remember. So that was a 60s radical group, and they've reincarnated again in modern times. And they put out a poster to all their members announcing a march on Regent Spiegel's home, because apparently, protesting on campus just isn't enough. So they decided to march on a personal residence in a private neighborhood. And by the way, this is the second time they've done it. The first time was the board chair of the Regents had her home marched on 2 weeks ago. And today was Regent Spiegel's turn. Of course, Regent Spiegel is Jewish. She's the only Jewish member of the CU Regents. So they decided to come and loudly protest in our peaceful, private little neighborhood on Sunday. So,
and what was the tone of the protest? Give us some details on what they were chanting, how many people were there, what were they wearing, what did the signs say?
Sure. So what they did is they organized themselves at a park about a few blocks from here, and then they marched up the street and marched through our neighborhood to Regent Spiegel's home. They were carrying signs such as "End the Genocide," and their chants were, "Hey, hey, you can't run, you can't hide, you're committing genocide." And of course, the good old one, "Palestine shall be free." So some of the counter protesters, and I'll tell you about, we had a big rally at the same time that they did. But some of our people from the rally stood in front of them, and every time they screamed, "Free Palestine," the counter protesters screamed, "Free Palestine from Hamas."
Oh, very smart.
So their protests went on for about an hour and a half in front of her house. There were police everywhere. I have to give a big shout out to the police. They did a phenomenal job. There were police in full gear throughout our neighborhood. They were ready for any potential violence. Thank God none occurred. We saw a drone in the sky, which I assume was a police drone. So while they were protesting in front of the house, we had called for, we didn't want to call it a counter protest because we didn't want to engage the protesters, but we had a pro-Israel, pro-America rally right behind Regent Spiegel's house. There's a big open field in our neighborhood. So while the protesters were out in front of our house screaming that Regent Spiegel's committing genocide, and again, as you noted, she's Jewish, and on her mom's side, her grandparents went through the Holocaust. So while they're screaming that, we're singing the Star Spangled Banner in the backyard and carrying our American flags and Israeli flags. So it's quite a scene.
That makes me happy. I like that.
We're talking with Rich Sokol. He is present at a protest that took place outside of a CU Regent's house in Greenwood Village, targeting her because of the fact that CU's not withdrawing their investments from Israel. We've seen a lot of these chants, Rich, that are not just anti-genocide, but from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which are chants to essentially eliminate Israel. What do you think a young Jewish boy or girl living in that neighborhood, watching these people walk by, feel about their safety, about this country, about what's happening here when they see people like that? What do you think the message communicates to those young Jews?
Sure. So this was a message of pure, unadulterated hate. This is a message saying that Israel should not exist. And if you're Jewish, the Jewish people don't have a right to a homeland like any other people. So that's got to affect the mind of every person, every Jew. It should, bother every person, Jewish or not. This is blatant anti-Semitism. This is pure hatred. And this was wholly, wholly inappropriate. And think about the people in our neighborhood. Not only am I a good friend of Regent Spiegel, I'm her neighbor. I live 5 doors down from Regent Spiegel. So to have this in our neighborhoods, this is our neighborhood. We're supposed to feel safe. This is where, we're a close-knit neighborhood. We, shovel each other's driveways in the winter. To have this kind of hatred in our homes on a Sunday, on Father's Day, it was so over the line. What these people did.
I mean, do you think we're crossing a Rubicon here, Rich Sokol, where, look, in the past, we had our political differences, and you went into the public square to advocate them, right? I'd get elected, go down to the state capitol. We'd advocate there. But at night, you went home. You went home to your family. You had a peaceful place where this wasn't all drawn into. And you're seeing these protests outside of Samuel Alito's house, outside of Clarence Thomas's house. Now you're seeing them outside of CU Regent's house. The radical left is pushing these interference debate or protests, these interference protests into people's personal lives because they can't win in the court of public opinion anymore. They've got to try to take it right to your front door. Are we crossing a Rubicon, you think, in our culture?
I don't think we're crossing, Jeff. I think we've crossed. The fact that this is thought to be okay. And this is, as you mentioned, happening all over the country. I mean, what the hell has happened to us? Where this is like just another day in America. This shouldn't be just another day in America when people do this. Look, these people have their right to their First Amendment opinion. Absolutely. They can scream whatever they want. You know, they have the right to scream. There's no law in America against being an idiot. You could be as stupid as you want in America, and these people prove it. But when you come and violate all norms of decency, okay, we have clearly crossed the line. And unfortunately, I think we're becoming a society where the indecent has now become normalized.
Rich,
and that scares the hell out of me.
I agree with you. Rich, a lot of these protests took place while the students were in class. Classes ended on many of these college campuses. A lot of us are looking at the DNC convention and whether or not these protests are going to show up there. A lot of organizations are planning to show up and protest at the DNC, targeting Joe Biden and the Democrats. I mean, it's kind of a fascinating moment because you don't hear about the fact that they might show up at the RNC convention. They may, but I think there's a concerted effort, a calculated effort right now to turn a political party against Israel. They are willing to give up this election. I mean, I think I think Donald Trump would be more supportive of Israel, but they're not protesting Donald Trump as much as they seem to be protesting Joe Biden. I think it's because they think they have the kind of the nose under the camel's nose under the tent, where we have created a fracture within the Democrat Party, and we have a real opportunity to turn one of America's major parties against Israel. What are you seeing on the ground? What do you think is going to happen at the DNC convention with these protests, these pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protests?
So my guess is, probably the same as yours, Jeff and Bill. Like, I'm reading the same things you are, that there's going to be massive protests at the DNC. It's in Chicago. Just, of course, it brings up memories of the 1968 anti-war riots in front of the DNC, which also happened to be in Chicago in 1968. So these people are single focused. For whatever reason, the anti-Israel cause is deep in their hearts, and we could talk about, are they just ignorant, or are they just anti-Semitic, or probably both? And they think it's cool and sexy to protest. And unfortunately, in our society, being a radical protester has become cool and sexy, and it shouldn't be. One thing I wanted to mention, so I should mention, first of all, that Regent Spiegel does happen to be a Democrat, though I don't think that should be relevant. I have no idea if they knew that or not. But one thing that really bothered me, among many things that they did on Sunday, was one of them was interviewed on one of the local TV channels, and he was asked about the counter protest. So he said, well, look at us and look at how many different colors you see here, and then look at the group counter protesting. Basically they're all white and old. I'm paraphrasing what he said. So you can already see the difference between us and them. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell does skin color have to do with this? He was somehow equating the fact that a lot of people in their group had purple hair, and there were blacks and whites in their group, which was fine. But somehow that's what made their cause right, and the fact that the counter protesters were a bunch of white old people made our cause wrong. I'm like, who thinks like that? They're somehow justifying what they're saying based on the racial makeup of their group.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh my.
and you see that because it's so based in Marxist thinking that if you have oppressors versus oppressed, you actually greenlight anything that oppressors or the oppressed do against the oppressors, right? So if you want to yell at somebody because of their skin color, dismiss their arguments, if you want to literally attack them like they did on October 7th, it's morally justified because the other side is the oppressor. And our culture has bought into this Marxist level of thinking that then green lights ethically allows anything that the oppressed want to do. They're justified. They're fighting back against the oppressor.
Exactly. And, the fact that that's now normative in our society, I'm like, so, I know these are ignorant people. They're dumb people that march. They're aggressive. There's a lot that's wrong with them. But I think it reflects a wider problem in our society that radical protest is now just another day in America. And so many people are looking through this racial lens about who's the oppressed and who's the oppressor. And anything the oppressed or the so-called oppressed do is then okay to fight the oppressor, including what we saw on October 7th, including raping and murdering and cutting, babies out of their mother's womb. Well, that's okay if you're oppressed. And that's a sickness in our society that people believe this, and we've got to turn that around. I do want to contrast what they did.
No, go ahead, please.
Sure. I do want to contrast what they did, just to mention, in the space of 2 days, though, so we knew they were going to be a hateful group. We organized a very peaceful, pro-America, pro-Israel rally in the area right behind Regent Spiegel's home. We had about 150 people come, which was great. We had a couple speeches talking about why the United States and Israel share common values and why we have such a strong bond and how we're different than the people on the other side of the house. Our rally was all about peace and love and getting together and being positive and trying to make the world a better place, just to contrast with what was going on the other side of the street. At our rally, if you walk by, you would have seen a ton of American flags, a ton of Israeli flags, singing the national anthem. I guarantee you the Star Spangled Banner was not sung by the pro-Palestinian protesters in front of Regent Spiegel's house.
Rich Sokol, pro-Israel activist, joining Jeff and Bill live, talking about a protest that happened on Father's Day in front of the house of one of the CU regents. Rich, the question I have that's kind of been bouncing around in my head, was there any indication, overt or even passive, from the group that they understood Regent Spiegel's religion and her background as far as her family being affected and impacted by the Holocaust? Was there any reference to her Jewish heritage at all by the group?
To my knowledge, there was not. So I have to tell you, I was the leader of the Pro-America, Pro-Israel rally.
Yeah.
And so we spent our time in the open area behind her house. So I was not with the protesters or watching the protesters for more than just a few minutes at the very end. So I can't tell you, but there was nothing that I saw prior that stated they knew or didn't know that she was Jewish. They had just called for a rally in front of Regent Spiegel's house to demand, because the CU regents have not listened to their demands.
Yeah.
By the way, I thought it was very telling. So Regent Spiegel put out a message afterwards, of course, condemning the hate. But she specifically mentioned that the CU regents have heard their demands. The answer was just no. And apparently the protesters don't like that the answer was no to their demands. But one of their claims was that the CU regents aren't listening to us, so therefore we must march in front of their homes.
Rich, you brought out one of my favorite, and I use it with Jeff all the time, my favorite quotes from the movie MASH. Where the young soldier's in the recovery room and he turns, he's like, Captain, I thought you said that God answers prayers. He goes, he does, my son. Just sometimes the answer is no. And that's kind of that filter as well. Yeah. That sometimes, yes, they heard your protest, but sometimes the answer is no. And the reason I asked about whether or not they were aware of Regent Spiegel's heritage was, I'd be curious about the people inside of the protest. Were they just mad at Israel's aggression, or do they think that Hamas actually has a role and a kind of a complaint inside of that region. And the reason I want to know that is because number one on the Hamas charter is the complete and total obliteration of all the Jews on the planet. And so I'm always curious about the individuals that are coming out and protesting in this conflict, and they're throwing around the word genocide, not understanding that the individuals they are standing with, the individuals they are claiming to support, actually in their founding documents claim they want to have a genocide, which is the exact accusation that the protesters are lobbying pejoratively against Israel. The people they are supporting actively want to effect a genocide on the Jewish people around the world. And when the protesters are claiming that the Israelis are the one doing a genocide, I'm sorry, all you protesters, you need to stop and check yourselves. You need to do a little bit more research. You need to do a little bit a deeper understanding of exactly who you are standing with, because they want to do the thing that you claim is so atrocious. Take a couple of minutes, guys. I find it abhorrent, honestly. I mean, you handled it much better than I probably would have. I would have been on the news. It would have been physical, but I would have been on the news.
Well, we didn't want anything physical to occur, obviously.
Yeah.
So, first of all, Bill, I couldn't have said it better than that. Yeah. So you said these people need to do a little more research. I would argue that they need to do any research, because if they spent about 10 minutes researching this, they would come to a different conclusion and see, yeah, there's a genocide going on, just as you said, but it's Hamas and the radical Palestinian groups that are committing the genocide, that believe there should be no Jews on the planet, where Israel goes to great lengths to try and protect civilians. Israel goes to more lengths to protect civilians than any army has ever done in the history of our planet.
Yeah.
And yet Israel gets, this word genocide gets thrown around, which by the way, also really bothers me, because there are real genocides that are occurring. For example, the Holocaust. You mentioned that. What happened in Rwanda? That was a genocide. And when we throw around the word genocide so flippantly, it cheapens the word. And it makes the real genocides that have occurred on our planet, somehow just seem normalized in everyday occurrences when they're not. And we have to remember that sometimes there are genocides, and if you call everything a genocide, then nothing is a genocide. So these people are doing a great disservice to the peoples of the world who really do or may face genocide in the future. So one other thing I wanted to mention, though, about the rally. So if you came to our rally, of course, we're singing our patriotic songs. The protesters all wore masks. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Why are they wearing masks? I mean, they have something to say, and yet they cover their faces when they're saying it, because they don't want retribution. I'm like, that's courage. You feel good enough or courageous enough to come in front of someone's house on Father's Day and protest in front of their house, but yet you won't show your face. What does that say?
It says a lot. It says a lot. And Rich, I want to close with this. I grew up not far from you at all. And what breaks my heart is to think what my friends growing up, young Jewish boys and girls living in that neighborhood, saw those types of people come through. And I want to take a moment to just send a message. And this just gets me, because my friends grew up in that neighborhood. I played baseball with them, Jewish friends. And to see that, and to see those types of people walk through, I just want to say this. One, the Jewish contribution to Western civilization is immeasurable. We would not be where we are today if it wasn't for our Jewish friends. And the contribution of law, of the Torah, of the 10 Commandments, of what we inherited as Christians from our Jewish friends needs to be celebrated and honored. And secondly, you deserve a homeland. Israel is a good country. I have visited it. It is a republic. It is a democracy. It is a free market in the Middle East. It is an important ally of the United States. And you deserve your own free land. And then third, I want you to know this. There are Christians that stand with our Jewish friends, and what you had to experience watching that walk through your neighborhood was not right. And there are more people with you than are against you in this country. So to my Jewish friends in that neighborhood, we stand with you. And Rich, I appreciate you taking time to jump on this show and to tell us what you saw out there. And thank you for organizing the real celebration of America and celebration of Israel that took place.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing the alternative rally. That was really important, really special. Appreciate you more than you know for doing that. Thanks, man.
Hey, thank you. And a special shout out. We did have a lot of Christian friends at our rally. From the bottom of our hearts, we say thank you. We love you. We know you stand with us. Right now, we need all the support we can get, and we are so grateful to our Christian friends.
Amen. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Rich Sokol, pro-Israel activist out there discussing this pro-Hamas protest that took place right in front of a CU Regent's house, a Jewish CU Regent's house. By the way, I don't care who you are on any issue. Don't show up at somebody's house. Don't show up at somebody's house.
I think for me it's the idea that, and I disagree with this tactic, and it's been going on for a while. I mean, it's not brand new. It's like, oh God, you can go back 6, 7, 8 years at least. It's been going on more than that, probably. It might be even a decade now. It's to make the individual uncomfortable, and it's to make their neighbors uncomfortable with who they are and what they do. We saw it. I mean, the genesis in part even went back. You saw it early in the pro-life, anti-abortion movements, showing up at doctors' houses inside the neighborhoods. And it's to make them, and whoever it is, regardless of your issue, I think that when you bring it inside of the neighborhood, you're piercing a veil of their privacy. And I disagree with the methods in which you are taking, because if you're okay with showing up at their house, then tell you what, go ahead and email the Jeff and Bill show and leave your name and your address, and I will subcontract with someone that I know, and I will have them follow you around for several days with a megaphone and yelling things to you everywhere you are in public. And they will just follow you, and they'll just say things. It won't be horrible, it won't be too offensive, but it definitely will follow you around everywhere you go. I won't tell you what they're going to say, but it's not going to shine you, whatever it is, in the nicest light. Now, could it be true? Maybe, maybe not. At that point, doesn't matter, does it? It's just about embarrassing you.
It reminds
so if you think
me,
this is okay, let's do this.
That's a great point, Bill. It reminds me of that Seinfeld episode where he gets the spam caller.
Yes.
And he goes, you know what? I'm busy right now, but if you give me your phone number, I'll call you back later this evening. And he goes, no, I don't want to give you my phone number. And Jerry goes, because you don't want somebody calling you at your house?
Yeah, exactly. Is that why? Yep. It's exactly the thing. Same thing.
Want to talk to you about my friend Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for about a decade now. Dan is pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. He shares our values, and he's helping support the show. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. You know why? Because there's some accident lawyers out there not so good. Not so good. You don't want to show up with them. Show up with Dan Caplis. Everybody in this town knows that Dan is a stand-up guy. He's the son of a police officer. He's also a former seminarian, and he's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. He's also a Titan. He's going to win, because he's won a lot. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. So he's with you on the values, and he's a Titan when it comes to fighting for you. He's believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. He's a serious lawyer for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, he'd be my first call. Give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S Law.com. All right, is there a reckoning coming for Pfizer? The Attorney General in Kansas filing a lawsuit saying that Pfizer was not fully truthful when it comes to whether or not the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, was, quote, safe and effective, bringing, quote, misleading claims to the general public. Woo! This is going to be spicy. We'll get into it next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in Berlin, I'm Trent Murray, and here are the top stories we're following. Multiple evacuation orders have been issued in New Mexico as a wildfire burns out of control in the south of the state. The fire is burning near the village of Ruidoso, about 180 miles south of Albuquerque. Local fire authorities overnight said the town, which is home to 7,000 people, is in danger from the fire, which has now burned over 5,000 acres. Russian President Vladimir Putin is travelling to North Korea, his first visit to the secretive nation in 24 years. Chris Gilbert has the details.
While it's Vladimir Putin's first trip to Pyongyang in 24 years, he's not expected to be there even 24 hours. But in that time, he is set to meet his counterpart Kim Jong-un, and along with his delegation, which includes his ministers of space, defense and energy, sign a new partnership agreement, which is set and expected to focus on security matters, boosting suspicions in Washington that Pyongyang is supplying munitions for Russia's long-running conflict in Ukraine in exchange for financial support and assistance with its space program from Moscow. Vladimir Putin said ahead of the trip that he is intending to set a trade relationship with North Korea that cannot be touched by the West.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Trent Murray in Berlin on Salem News Channel.
All right. Hey, Colorado, Jeff Hunt here. My family and I are marking our... All right, big news coming out of Kansas. This is going to affect a lot of people. Kansas Attorney General sues Pfizer over COVID vaccine. Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach is suing the healthcare and pharmaceutical company Pfizer for alleged misleading claims the company made regarding the vaccine for COVID-19. The Attorney General made the announcement in a press release on Monday, June 17th, following a press conference. The complaint is to be filed in Kansas. Kobach's argument alleges Pfizer misled Kansans about risks associated with vaccines, including to pregnant women and for myocarditis. The complaint also alleges Pfizer declined to participate in the federal government's vaccine development program known as Operation Warp Speed to avoid government oversight. I went through the initial filings, and Billy, it seems to come down to this: the term safe and effective. So Pfizer went out there with the government and said, this vaccine is safe and effective, not only for average people like you and me, but also for pregnant women. And there's some research showing that it may not be so. And so they want to take it to court. What do you think this is going to do?
Little or nothing. Nothing's going to happen. It's going to be a waste of the Kansas City taxpayers' time, effort, money, and Kovach doesn't have a case at all, really, because he's just mad about how do you define safe and effective. And so the idea is going to be, well, I thought about it differently. Okay, so again, when we are necessarily,
do you think the vaccine's fully safe and effective?
How do you define safe and effective? And that's the issue, is that I would assume that how we would normally define safe and effective would not be what the Kansas Attorney General's thinking of. He has something completely and totally different in mind. And the question will be, is his bar that he's looking for the same or different than what other vaccines have gone through? Mm-hmm. And again, looking at the idea that what went on with Operation Warp Speed and some of the stuff that he complains about are just dumb. The pregnancy thing, the myocarditis thing, what was the other one? There was something else in there that was just like, no, that's just wrong. A couple of things were just flat out wrong. And I understand the idea of, let's dial this back a little bit. There was a narrative for a while inside of the anti-vaccine crowd about the vaccines causing myocarditis. Mm-hmm. Yes, it can cause that in a number of cases. Yes, it can as a side effect. But you know what causes more instances of myocarditis? Getting the freaking virus. When you're complaining that the vaccine has a chance to give me something that I'm more likely to develop when I get the actual illness, your complaint's pretty stupid. I mean, it really is.
I think the tides are turning. Here's why. The New York Times tweeted this out in May. Thousands of people who say they were injured by COVID vaccines believe their cases have been ignored. Some scientists fear that patients with real injuries are being denied help and believe that more needs to be done to clarify the possible risks. There was so much pressure to get the vaccine early on, and then claims that it was safe and effective. And not only that there were possible side effects, but that you were a lunatic if you believed there were any side effects. They put pressure on there that they were, and there's plenty of videos out there of this where they go back and look at the media pressure that you were anti-American, you were insane if you believe there are side effects and you didn't get the vaccine, even to the point of saying, we should force this. There should be mandates on everybody to get the vax. And now I see the tide starting to turn. And I think Pfizer is going to have to prove that those claims of being safe and effective were fully safe and effective.
But what do you mean by safe and effective? Because here's the thing. Every single medication you take has side effects. Everything.
Do you think that was communicated during the COVID craziness, though? I don't think it was.
Well, hang on a sec. And this is what I come back to. The fact that a large majority of the American population is rock chewing stupid isn't our fault. That's on you, dummies. I mean, I'm sorry. I hate to be so blunt about this, but let's review. Okay. Everybody that is of majority age that has been on this planet has been exposed to and should be well aware that all the medications we have side effects. Even the little bottles of pills and stuff that you grab at the Walgreens. On the back, side effects. Guess what? You take that cold medicine, side effects. NyQuil.
But again,
side effects.
Do you think that was communicated during the COVID craziness,
Hold on a second.
I don't think that was at all.
Hold on. Let me get to it. Side effects for all of those, okay? Eye drops, potential side effects. Side effects. The assumption by a person that they are delivering the COVID vaccine and there aren't side effects is patently stupid. And again, that's why I say the American people screwed this up along with the government based on, in part, our misunderstanding of science. If anybody came to the assumption that the COVID virus didn't have any side effects, that's on you. We don't have a single medication that doesn't have potential side effects. They all do. The fact that you have a warning label on the back of your freaking NyQuil, you thought that the shot didn't have any? Have you seen the list of possible side effects you have?
I don't think
any vaccine.
So I don't think they communicated that. I think that they pressed this. I think they got to the point of a frenzy.
Wait, hang on a second.
Nearly wanting to put a vax mandate on people.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
Why do we have to explain to people that something that always has side effects has side effects?
I think this is revisionism. I think it's revisionism to do that. No, I mean, do you remember? Maybe you don't remember it as much because I didn't get the vax shot, but the pressure that came, people were losing their jobs if they didn't get the vax mandate. They were kicked out of the military if they didn't get the vax. This was pressed so hard to a point of nearly a public mandate. Many people, like I said, losing their jobs if they didn't get this. Now all of a sudden they're like, well, of course this stuff has side effects. We always knew it had side effects. I think that's revisionism.
Well, not at all, because here's the idea. Anybody that assumed they didn't, that's on you. I don't remember anybody coming out and saying there are no side effects. I don't ever remember
Safe and effective is what they said.
But that doesn't mean no side effects. I mean, if you watch all those things like Fox News, they run all those sorts of medication commercials. They all say those medication commercials are safe and effective, despite the fact that every single darn one of them stops for about a 60-second break to have a list of side effects. Every single one of them. Safe and effective does not mean no side effects. And again, that's on the misinterpretation.
And they're not suing that there's no side effects. They're suing over the claim that this was safe and effective when there were side effects. But it wasn't communicated well. And then you force mandates and you force people to get this. And pregnant women took this. And there may be some serious side effects, especially to preborn children. All right. We're running up against a break here, and I wish I could have a longer conversation about this, but I think that this is the tip of the spear, and there's going to be a lot more that comes out after it. So we'll have to see. Appreciate the Attorney General of Kansas doing this. Want to talk to you all about roll them out shelves. We had these installed in our house recently. First of all, Joyce and Brent are wonderful people. I love being able to work with them. When you invite them over to your house, it's like having your mom and brother over. They're incredibly personable. This is not a big corporation. This is a small business run by a mother-son team. They are dedicated and they do great work. Secondly, their installation was fantastic. We use our roll-em-out shelves every day. I was using them last night to get to some bean burritos we were going to have. So I need to find the beans and the green chilies. I didn't need to pull things out, reach into the back of a cupboard. It just pulled out. Begin the affordable transformation in your home for less than $1,000 when Roll 'em Out Shelves efficiently organizes your space with sturdy Baltic birch shelves built right here in Colorado and guaranteed for life. Call for your free in-home estimate today, 303-475-9601. That's 303-475-9601 or rollemoutshelves.com. Be sure to tell them Jeff sent you, rollemoutshelves.com. We'll continue with your calls next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
ANUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking this news that broke yesterday. The Attorney General of Kansas leading a lawsuit against Pfizer, saying that the company has been engaging in misleading claims as it relates to the safety essentially of the COVID vaccination. Have conservatives been right all along that the jab is not as safe as people say, or is this just a conspiracy theory running the end of its course? Let's go to Frank in Denver. Frank, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning, Frank.
Morning, guys. I'm going to have to come down more on the side of Jeff on this one, I think, Bill, because I think it's, time has passed and we've been able to collect more data now on the actual numbers. And the only way we get a full disclosure of this is in a court case. And, the AG of Kansas is no political hack just out there trying to put forth a position. He's the bottom of the funnel in Kansas with people coming to him complaining about these things happening to them. So we'll hopefully get actual numbers of people that did get myocarditis and or clots and see whether it exceeds any previous statistics for a regular vaccine trotted out.
Frank, I appreciate the call. We're just out of time. Coming up next, Flora is going to join us live in studio. She's going to win next week. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
That opening always makes me want to grab a Coors Light. Welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show. My name is Jeff Hunt. I'm the co-host of this circus, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insight from the right, left, center. Crazy, pro-vax, anti-vax, pure blood, never blood, who knows, whatever.
Mud blood. You don't understand the mud blood. Yeah, I don't understand that.
Isn't that from Harry Potter?
Yeah. That's a pejorative in Harry Potter. Yeah, my nerd coming out. Yep.
In just a second, we're going to hear from Deborah, Flora. Yes, you know that name. She's been regularly on this show and used to be a host here on 710 KNUS. She was that afternoon drive time while you were hanging out in the carpool line. When I was picking up my kids, that's who I tuned into. So Deb Flora is going to join us in just a second. How does the race look? We're 1 week out. She going to win next week? We're going to get into all those details in just a second. But let's check in on the news first with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
That is so funny. I was in the carpool line all the time listening to Deb as well. Every time.
It's great timing.
Yeah. No, it was. It was great. Got a lot of work done in those carpool lines waiting. All right, 59 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the mid-70s today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
I just hear a boom. Everything around us just shakes and they're screaming and the houses just go up in flames. You can just feel everything going hot. Ashes are everywhere. It was one of the scariest experiences.
2 people are dead following a Monday afternoon plane crash in Steamboat. It crashed in the West Acres mobile home park and burst into flames. Nobody on the ground was hurt. The plane was on its way to Ogden, Utah from Longmont.
What is with all these planes going on?
I know.
There was one the other day.
Third one in probably a week and a half, I think. Yeah, I mean, small planes and, the mountains create a lot of challenges.
Turbulence, that's right.
A lot of turbulence in those small planes, man. I don't know. I know a couple of pilots, and they always ask me if I want to go up, and I'm like, heck no, thank you.
My pops had a little single engine plane when we were kids, and we'd bounce around, go down to the state fair, all that stuff in him. But you'd have like 10, 20-foot shifts because of the wind off those mountains and stuff.
Yes. And those, what are those called? The gliders with the motors on the back. I don't know. You see them flying around.
Ultralights.
Yeah, the ultralights. The Walker mower near where I live over here, they have a little airfield, and they fly those things all the time. I'm like, man, you see their legs hanging off the bottom. I'm like, there is no way I would do that. I'll put my drone up so I can just enjoy it that way. It's crazy. Let's see. What do we have going on here? Oh, here we go.
You feel good enough or courageous enough to come in front of someone's house on Father's Day and protest in front of their house, but yet you won't show your face. What does that say?
Rich Sokol experienced the jackwagons, i.e. the Hamas supporters who protested CU Regent Alana Spiegel's home on Sunday. He lives in the neighborhood, and Sokol joined Jeff and Bill last hour.
So this was a message of pure unadulterated hate. This is a message saying that Israel should not exist. And if you're Jewish, the Jewish people don't have a right to a homeland like any other people. So that's got to affect the mind of every person, every Jew. It should, bother every person, Jewish or not. This is blatant anti-Semitism. This is pure hatred. And this was wholly inappropriate.
Sokol and other neighbors pushed back and wore patriotic clothes and sang the Star-Spangled Banner, had a few speeches, and celebrated the red, white, and blue along with Israel and our relationship with Israel. Good for them. The Biden administration is rolling out an executive action plan to grant temporary amnesty for hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants. The White House announced this morning that they would be launching a so-called parole in place plan for illegal immigrant spouses of U.S. citizens. This is only the beginning. This is their big plan. He's been talking about this for years. You know what? When you cheat, you can do a lot of things.
An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop. Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock.
I love how he tries to make it sound organic. A mysterious black residue being found in surgical equipment at the Rocky Mountain Regional VA Medical Center in Aurora is disrupting surgeries. The residue was noticed a month ago, and surgeries have been halted since then. Testing of the substance shows that it's some kind of plastic, but its source remains a mystery. No patients have been harmed. A biker is dead following a collision between a motorcycle and a garbage truck in Denver. It happened Monday at North Milwaukee and East 14th, where officials say the motorcyclist crashed into the back of the trash truck. A Monday evening shooting in Aurora left a man seriously injured. Investigators say the shooting happened just before 8:30 along East 32nd Avenue, where a man was found shot inside a vehicle. He was taken to a hospital to be treated, and there's no word on his current condition. There are no suspects. Rockies fall to the Dodgers 9-5. Back at it tonight at 6:40 at Coors. Game 5, Stanley Cup Finals tonight.
It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.
And that's a record number of victories for the Celtics. Let's see, 106-88 over the Mavericks last night in the championship, and Parker's own Derek White wins his first title. 54 in Superior, 56 in Castle Rock, and 59 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Tuesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The 710 5-day forecast, much cooler weather for Denver in the Front Range over the next 48 hours as a cold front comes in out of the northern Rockies. We'll stay in the 70s today and only going to be on the low end of the 70s tomorrow, so a good 20 to 25 degrees colder than the last few days. Isolated afternoon and evening thunderstorms possible today and on Wednesday. Warming back to the 80s Thursday through Saturday with afternoon and evening thunderstorms. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Joining us live in studio is Deborah Flora. Yes, you know that name. She was a host here at 710 KNUS for many years. Did a great job with her afternoon drive time show. Right as those moms and dads were going into the carpool line, she covered all those issues, especially around school choice. It's wonderful to see you again. You're running for Congress. You've got a big race. It's going to be decided a week from today.
It is.
You're running for Congressional District 4. You're in a competitive Republican primary against Lauren Boebert, against Richard Holtorf, against Mike Lynch, against Peter Yu, and against Jerry Sonnenberg. So are you going to win?
Well, the voters will decide that, but we are very excited about the momentum that we have. And I want to start by saying, so many endorsements have rolled in, and one of them, by the way, is Rich Sokol. And
nice.
Really
We had Rich on earlier.
Yes, really appreciate you having him on the show. I was at the Pro-Israel rally that happened that was beautiful and peaceful. People can go to my Facebook page and see a Facebook Live. And then we went to the exact opposite, which was on the other side of this park that was in front of a CU Regent's house, a Jewish woman. And man, what you see the difference between those two. I was honored to stand with those who stand with Israel, those who stand with our shared Judeo-Christian values. Rich did a great job, and he knows that I'm a stalwart supporter of our key ally in the Mideast. So it was great to be there, and great to be there at the same time as troubled by why we had to be there. And, he nailed it. What we saw when we went to the other side and we saw the pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic, I'd call them a mob, a small mob. It's not, you're not rallying for something. You are calling out hate against a people.
Yeah, and people that are willing to go to somebody's private home on Father's Day And protests outside their private residence are losers, and there's not that many of them. So
yeah, that's true. Well, and the key is, it's one of the things that I stand on unequivocally for this run for Congress, is understanding what is in the interest of the American people for national security, obviously starting with our southern border. But then when I look at what's going on abroad, I've seen the unedited Hamas body cam footage, Jeff, and you know what that shows you. It shows you that not only is it the moral and the right thing to do to stand with Israel, the only freely democratically elected country in the Middle East, it's in our national security, because what they're fighting there, when Hamas and these people were rallying for Hamas, basically, has in its charter to wipe every Jewish person off the face of the planet. I will always stand for what is right. And it was wonderful to see so many amazing people staying up, like you said, singing the national anthem and then talking about our shared values.
And I know you've been critical of Lauren Boebert's votes against Israel funding, but I believe her argument is that it included funding for Hamas and Palestine. She didn't want to do that.
Well, let's be really clear about this. I'm glad for that opportunity. She voted not just once, but twice against funding for Israel ever since the October 7th atrocities. The reality is Israel, AIPAC, the Republican Jewish Coalition, everyone had asked for the support in that last vote in particular. It was the last opportunity to support our key ally. Was it a perfect bill? No. But the Republican Jewish Coalition said afterwards, naming Lauren Boebert by name, that anyone who voted against that bill could no longer call themselves pro-Israel. And I agree with that. I think that perfect is the enemy of good. And when Israel's already doing humanitarian aid in that area. Yes, because would there be a guarantee that some of that money didn't fall into the wrong hands? No. But did our key ally ask us? And here's the other thing about that, Jeff. We have to understand complex, serious times and issues. One of the only things, and I've heard this from Rich Sokol, who has endorsed me, a pro-Israel activist. I've talked to AIPAC about this, the Republican Jewish Coalition. One of the only things that is keeping Iran from furthering the atrocities that started on October 7th are two things. Number one, the prowess of the Israel military. And number two, the belief that Americans, particularly Republicans, will always be supporting this key ally. That's one of the things that's a deterrent. That just got undermined by votes like Lauren Boebert's, and I think it was about 19 other Republicans who voted with a majority of Democrats. That was very troubling.
And I think that's a fair response. I don't think you could say that Lauren's anti-Israel. She's just not. And her argument being that it was about Hamas, but the compelling argument there is that Israel asked for this, even if Hamas and Palestinians were going to get some funding out of it.
Yeah, and I'm just quoting the Republican Jewish Coalition that mentioned her by name and said she cannot call herself pro-Israel anymore. You may not be anti-Israel, but you certainly can't say you're pro-Israel if you do not. The last opportunity, Rich and I talked about this. I've talked with AIPAC, Republican Jewish Coalition. And by the way, an IDF captain who fought in the Yom Kippur War and several wars after that, who also endorsed me. You cannot say that you are pro-Israel if when, in its greatest time of need, the last opportunity to help provide support, and by the way, it wasn't money. All that they were asking for was more armament. And by the way, going back even further, we have Ronald Reagan's leadership to thank for the fact of the Iron Dome, because at a time of need, America supported Israel in their phenomenal defense system, and they were just asking for that continued support.
Now, I want to continue with Lauren Boebert because she seems to be the lead dog right now, according to some polls. She's around 40%, which wouldn't be great if it was just you and her. But there's 5-6 people in this race that can pull from that 60% pool. And if everyone gets, 5, 10, 20%, she gets 40%, she wins. Is she going to win next Tuesday? Or are you going to win next Tuesday?
The voters are going to decide. But what I'm very encouraged by is the momentum that we have. When I was on last time, the Gazette had just endorsed me. I've been endorsed by the Douglas County Sheriff, the Elbert County Sheriff, many of the mayors and city council members in the area. And we see people really gravitating. One of the reasons why the Gazette endorsed me was to indicate that it is time for a new, fresh leadership in the
Right.
Republican Party, that mine is the campaign to coalesce around. And anyone who's listening who has not voted, this is their opportunity to make a decision between more of the dysfunction and the division that's going on in Washington, D.C., keeping the Republican coalition from actually doing anything, doing the work of the people, securing the border, getting our economy back on track, or coalescing around our campaign so we can have new principled leadership that will unite us, build a coalition, and get the work done.
Have you guys been tracking ballot returns? Do you know where they are at all?
Well, across the country right now, they're at a low point. And
Yeah.
so we're encouraging everyone to
So
get
still
out and
an
vote.
open race
It
in that
is.
sense.
It is.
Have those endorsements translated to the grassroots? You're out there talking to people. We were just talking here about prior to the show how much door knocking you're doing. Will you see and talk with people? Is that translating?
It really is. I mean, what's been really exciting is, since I've gotten into this race, Jeff, I can add to my mileage, probably nearly 20,000 miles now, nearly 300 events where I've been with people. And then that's not even counting the door knocking. So we've been knocking on doors. We've been at all these different events. And it's been really phenomenal because people are doing their homework. That's what we're asking folks to do. Do your homework and then vote. Because really, many people have become disheartened. But what they're realizing is they can make a difference in this race. When you have historically low turnouts across the country, that means every vote counts. And we're hearing people saying, oh, I saw you on the debates, or I read more about you, or I saw your stance on this. Because the other thing is I'm the only candidate that has put out a very detailed plan, the roadmap to restoring America. And then 2 weeks ago, we released a even more in-depth plan for the border. And what people are realizing is it's time to get away from just bumper stickers, single lines like build the wall, deport them all, and instead get to the really focused, detailed outline of what we're going to do. And in fact, I want to invite listeners tomorrow evening. We're going to build upon our work that we did here at the station, going down to the border last year and going from El Paso to Deming, New Mexico to Columbus, New Mexico, listening to Border Patrol. Tomorrow evening, we're going to have a border security and public safety forum with Sheriff Darren Wakely of Douglas County, who's endorsed me, and also John Fabricatori, because John was our border consultant as a retired ICE director. He's also a CDC candidate. And I invite everyone to come 5:30 to 7, the Lone Tree Hub, because my goal has always been, and this is what we're hearing from voters and will continue to be, to really dive down deeper in these complex issues. I mean, Jeff, I think what people are realizing is our country is facing serious, complex issues. That requires serious, complex representatives that are principled and focused on solutions.
Now, the race says a unique aspect because the districts changed. It used to just be kind of just ag Eastern Plains, but now it's come into Douglas County. And the way I think a lot of pundits have looked at this race is you've got three farmers, essentially ranchers, that are vying for that Eastern Plains vote. You've got Richard Holtorf, Jerry Sonnenberg, Mike Lynch. Literally all three of them are farmers and ranchers. You are a suburban mom, right? You and so is your base the Douglas County suburban mom base, and you're appealing to the farmers? Or tell me how the kind of different demographics have shaped up in this race, and are you better to represent the Eastern Plains than the three farmers that showed up in this race?
Well, it's a great question because a lot of people remember the traditional CD4 makeup, and that was, when it was always represented from the northeastern area. Since the redistricting right before the last election, it is now 73% suburban, 49% unaffiliated. Half of the electorate is Douglas County.
You said 73% suburban.
It is because it's also Loveland.
It's like what CD5 used to be.
That's exactly right. And here's why that's important. I've been all over this district. I've spent the majority of my time in the Eastern Plains because it is so large. That's why I've got 20,000 miles on my car. And because everyone in the Eastern Plains deserves to have a seat at the table when we are talking about the ag bill or the energy situation. But also what I believe they realize is the most important thing is that we win and keep this seat in the Republican column. When Douglas County is half of the electorate and we have people fleeing the failing policies of Denver and coming down into Highlands Ranch and Parker, and we elected the first Democrat in Highlands Ranch, we have to hold the line there. And when we've had forums in the population centers, I've won all of them by double-digit margins.
I mean, do you think that the bomb throwing doesn't appeal well to that part of the electorate?
I think the bomb throwing doesn't appeal very much to almost anyone. You know, when you think about it, Jeff, when I've been out there talking to folks, we have 49% unaffiliated voters, not because they're all coming from California. That's just an easy narrative. Some have come out of state, but a huge portion of those are former Republicans who've left the party. And one of my focuses and one of the things that's resonating, they do not like the bomb throwing. They do not like the drama and the dysfunction. They realize we've gone from nearly 40% when I was growing up here on Lowry Air Force Base. We were nearly 40% Republicans. We're down to 24%.
Yeah, this is where I think it's going to be fascinating on Wednesday of next week, because you have a clear delineation in this party.
Yes, we do.
We talk about it all the time. You have what I would, the Jeff Cranks versus Dave Williams, right?
Yes.
Dave clearly embracing the bomb throwing, sharp elbows, fighting, we win when we conquer type of mentality. And you have the Jeff Cranks who are kind of more thoughtful, engaged, more of a kind of a traditional Republican. I would say we have the same thing here in CD4 with Lauren Boebert. So help me understand how we pull those together, because I have heard people that have left the Republican Party since Dave Williams sent out the email saying, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I've also heard from people going, this guy's finally standing up to the radical LGBTQ agenda.
Well, let's talk about the difference there, because first of all, when you look at what's happened, I'm proud to have been endorsed by Valdemar Archuleta, because I sat in that seat where you are, Jeff, when Valdemar and I talked about what does it mean to be a conservative. Let's redefine this term. I am a constitutional conservative. From that standpoint, I don't believe there's anybody more conservative in this race. And what that means is we stand for one another's right to live free. But Valdemar and I agreed on this point, but we draw the line when it comes to children. Children should just be children. Now, when you throw a bomb and you do a picture, and I found this offensive as a Christian also, you actually put out a photo or a photoshopped image of Jesus with burning laser eyes saying God hates flags, the Westboro Baptist phrase. What that does is it takes away from the intrinsic value of every single human being. It's time Republicans get back to standing on policy and principle. And by the way, we can stand together with others. Valdemar has been standing against the sexualization of children, against the transgender agenda that is in schools, versus standing on the principles. Because if we are not the people that stand on the Constitution, where we say every single person has intrinsic value and the right to individual liberty, and then draw the line at policy, that's what we have to do. And it's about time we get back to what I call Reagan Republicanism. Now, I was at a forum and Lauren Boebert called him Zombie Reagan. I think that's an incredible slam on one of the best presidents we've had. Because what did he do? He was unflinching on the Constitution to the point that he helped bring down the Soviet Union. I was there the day it happened, and they said it was because of Reagan's resolve, his commitment to freedom, his conservative principles. But he won 49 out of 50 states. And why was that? Not because he was squishy as a conservative, because he did not treat his neighbor as the enemy, and he invited them to join him.
The thing that gives me pause about whether or not we can go back to Reagan is how the Democrat Party has shifted. And the Economist had this great graphic the other day that Democrats have moved further to the left faster than Republicans have moved to the right. And so the center line between politics has shifted to the left because the left has gotten so liberal. So I would love to have Reagan Republicanism if it was still the 1980s. I was dealing with 1980 Democrats.
But I think it's defining what it means.
Okay.
because there are so many people that have left the Democrat Party as well, or the party has left them.
Mhm.
And there's this huge group in the center that knows something is terribly wrong. And all we have to do is invite them back into our big tent. Instead, what we have going on right now are people in this party that are leading it that want to not only seal the front flap and tell others they're not welcome if they don't agree with them 100% on everything. And somehow they believe we are no longer the party of free thinkers. But on top of that, they're shoving people out the back in the Purge and Purify movement saying, you don't agree 100% with me, so you have to get out. I absolutely believe we have a huge opportunity. If we get back to persuading our neighbors that our policies are what is the solution to what keeps them up at night. We have the solution for securing the border. We have the solution to cutting the debt and getting the inflation down. If we focus on that, we have the biggest opportunity in a long time because the Democrats have gotten so far left. And by the way, we can win on protecting children. And I've been fighting on that.
Yeah, you have.
That's why I'm proud of the being a part of this movement for this petition to protect girls' sports. We've had that everywhere we've gone for our events, and we can win on those issues. But let's get back to fighting on principle and policy, not these personal attacks.
Deb Flora is joining us live in studio. She's running for Congress. Give us a text message. What do you think of her? Are you going to vote for her? Has she earned your vote for Congressional District 4? I'd love to hear from you. Give us a text message on the 710 KNUS app or give us a call, 303-696-1971. I want to talk to you all about UltraCur. Look, there's plenty of different curcumin products out there on the market, but they're always going to make you pay to try. Not UltraCur. They believe so much in their product, they'll give you a free 3-day trial. UltraCur is a patented non-prescription natural capsule. It works fast to deal with your soreness. It's kind of a daily supplement that really helps you achieve your peak wellness. Experience UltraCur for free. Go to any Denver Metro natural grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial of UltraCur. If you've tried everything else without much success, even other natural curcumin products, you owe it to yourself to at least try UltraCur today. Get curious, Denver. Head to the natural grocers and grab your free 3-day UltraCur trial with no strings attached. If you're wondering about the research, all you have to do is visit getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. We'll continue with Deborah, Flora next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in Berlin, I'm Trent Murray, and here are the top stories we're following. At least 11 people have died and dozens are missing after 2 boats capsized in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Italy. The vessels were sailing in a border area where Greece and Italy carry out sea patrols in response to a growing number of migrant boats travelling to Europe. The UN says it believes the ships were carrying migrants from Iran, Syria and Iraq. Merchant vessels have been directed by authorities to help search for survivors, with those rescued brought to Calabria in southern Italy. The US Surgeon General wants warning labels on social media platforms. In New York, Haley Bianco has more.
In a New York Times opinion piece, Dr. Vivek Murthy writes that social media is a contributing factor to the mental health crisis among young people in the United States. And he says it's time to require a Surgeon General's warning label on social media platforms, similar to labels on cigarette packages. Murthy says those warnings have changed tobacco behavior, and that adding labels to social media platforms will be a step in the right direction when it comes to addressing mental health issues among America's youth. Reporting in New York, I'm Haley Bianco, Salem News Channel.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Trent Murray in Berlin on Salem News Channel.
She's running for Congressional District 4. That's that competitive Republican primary you're seeing. By the way, her website, if you want to learn more about her, is DeborahFlora.com, DeborahFlora.com, DeborahFlora.com. You can read her plan there. You can support her campaign. You can learn more all about her. She's a regular voice in conservative circles here in Colorado. All right, some text message. I'd love to get you to respond for our to 6948. Texted in. Deborah Flora has 100% earned my vote after she stood up to Lauren on her refusal to vote for Israel.
That is great. Thank you, whoever that is. And I appreciate that. And I would very much value the votes of those who've not voted. I would say get your vote in. You have 1 week left. And I will always be unequivocal in standing for what is right, including our key ally in the Middle East, securing the border, getting our economy back on track, lowering inflation. I'm going to be focused on those things. And people can see my plan at DeborahFlora.com, the roadmap to restoring America. Thank you so much.
All right. On the other side, you're just another Ken Buck, says 0767. Are you just another Ken Buck, Deborah?
You know, it's so funny because whenever I hear these things, I'm always like, okay, so which one of my constitutionally conservative stances would merit whatever comment it is? And I never get a reaction to that. In fact, I sat in that chair where you are, Jeff, when Ken Buck said that, you know, there's no room for impeachment, no reason for impeachment of Mayorkas or Biden, an impeachment inquiry, and had 12 pages of material about why I absolutely believe Congress is is the place to hold government accountable and have those impeachment inquiries and hearings. The only thing that I would say is where Ken Beck was a fiscal conservative, I will be that as well. But I am absolutely a constitutional conservative that will be fighting for the key issues of our day and line up straight with the Constitution.
All right, let's go through some issues real quick for people who've not heard this before. We do this with pretty much all of our candidates. Would you support a national pro-life law, a national ban on abortion?
I would support national pro-life legislation. That's always the way I've worded it, because we already have a history of that, a very good one, banning partial birth abortion, the Born Alive Act. I've been standing strong on that. I was on the board of CareNet for 2 terms, which supports women in crisis pregnancy resource centers. So 100% federal pro-life legislation I would support.
So like life at conception type of thing.
Yeah, we'd have to see where that consensus is for sure. But when you have states like Colorado that have abortion up until the moment of birth for any reason, everyone knows that that is barbaric and does not reflect our country. And I'm pro-life. I believe life begins at conception. But even the vast majority of Democrats are against that kind of extreme policy. They just don't even realize that we are at that point in Colorado.
I think it's almost like a god to them. It's like the Democrats would rather watch their states, their cities fall apart than support a pro-life law. I mean, it is just amazing how they are so locked into that.
And what they don't realize is how damaging it is for women. I mean, we've got to be the ones to always include that in the conversation. And I've always been there to support women who are in crisis so that they can make a choice of life for themselves and for their child.
All right, Biden coming out today with a plan to speed up those that have married an illegal immigrant. We want you to be able to get your full citizenship as fast as possible. It could affect up to 500,000 people in this country. You support mass deportations.
What I have talked about, and we're going to have a forum tomorrow. I invite everyone to come with Sheriff Darren Weakley of Douglas County, who has endorsed me. Also, John Fabricatore, who was our border consultant when we were down at the border for an extensive period, former retired ICE director, now CD6 candidate. Tomorrow night, 5:30 to 7, Lone Tree Hub. Come and hear even more in depth about this. I've delineated a very clear plan on this, more in depth even a couple of weeks ago, where we talk about first we have to secure the border, finish the wall, and incentives. And by the way, what Joe Biden just talked about, that's an incentive.
That's a big incentive.
Every time.
Las Vegas wedding chapels are going to be busy
goodness.
this weekend.
Every time that he does that, I was speaking to the Border Patrol last year in depth. Every time this president talks about another amnesty type plan, there is a surge at the border. And by the way, you know who suffers a lot from that, Jeff? Are desperate people coming here, because the drug cartels, which are incredibly
who's left
inhumane.
at this point? These guys have been wide open borders for 3 years.
I
Who's
know.
like, well, now's a good time to run up there.
Well, there's a lot of people from other countries, because by the way, when we talked to the Border Patrol, we asked who's really coming here. Is it really Mexico? Is it really people from there? And they said, no, it's all the stands: Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, Russia, and China. So 100%, I think that we've got to stop the incentives. We have to defund sanctuary cities like Denver, who want $180 million more dollars of our taxpayer funds. And they won't let federal law enforcement do its job. So 100% against that, 100% for securing our border, ending the national security and humanitarian disaster that's happening to the south of us.
We've only got a few more minutes with you. I know you got a hard break here, but I don't know about this one. Maybe you can provide some clarity. Typically, if I get a text message, there's other people who have the same question. They say you lost their support when you did not take a stand against the Dougco tax increase.
It's so funny because, first of all, I'm running for Congress. Second, I do believe that what's important, and I made it clear, I'm not for more taxes. I've taken a no new tax pledge with the Grover Norquist organization.
Right.
And the reality is, I did in my job sitting in that chair what you do, Jeff. I had people from both sides in, and all I said was the Douglas County School Board made their decision, and it was the right of the voters to make their decision. But I made it clear I was not voting for more taxes.
Gotcha. I get that all the time just because I don't beat down the other side. I'm apparently for
But
'em.
by the way, one of the things that they miss is I'm 100% for protecting parental rights and school choice. I've been a huge advocate doing that, standing for that, from Parents United America to being a part of this push and supporting protecting girls' sports and safe spaces. So I think the thing is, it's so funny when people pick one thing that I've been clear on instead of overlooking all the work I've been doing for years and years, including flipping our school board so it became in the hands of the stakeholders, the parents, the teachers, the students, instead of the unions.
That's right. Let's go to the phones real quick. Jack, up in Wyoming. You're on the Jeff and Bill show. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, Deborah, I used to talk to you quite frequently, and I'm very
Yes.
impressed with you.
Thank you,
But
Jack.
in
Good
my-
to hear your voice.
In my estimation, I think you are so much better suited on your local issues to take the spot of Polis, because I think he's out anyway. And I own proper. I own a lot of everything. But anyway, I think that's where you need to be. And I think Boebert is an attack dog, and we need her in Congress. I
Well,
just
let's
think
respond.
she's
Jack. We're
Well,
just
thank
about
you,
out of time,
Jack.
but Deborah, I'll give you the last word on this
Yeah,
one.
thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. I believe that the skill set I bring to the table for Congress is what's needed in this day, which is knowing the plumb line of the Constitution, being able to be an effective person using our committee hearings, because my background is in dragging the truth into the light, and with the ability to, tag team with a Jim Jordan, put people in that seat with the subpoena under oath, drag out the truth of the circumstance, and then make sure the American people know that. We need that. And instead of someone who's an attack dog in DC, what we need is someone who fights on principle and policy that can build a coalition. Right now, the Republican coalition in Congress is so dysfunctional. It broke into a shouting match and fisticuffs behind closed doors, and half of them walked out. We will never do the work of the people if we are all just grandstanding instead of building a coalition and persuading others to join us. That's why when we look at it, Lauren Boebert's been in Congress how long? Still the open border, even with 2 years under Donald Trump, where we had the presidency, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. That's why I wrote the Roadmap to Restoring America. My promise to everyone listening is the next time we have all three branches of government, we will not squander that opportunity. We will not nip around at the edges. We will do the serious work of securing our border, restoring our sovereignty, getting our economy under control, balancing our budget. We'll work together, but I'll do it by being a fighter in principle and policy and building a coalition so we can actually do the work of the people.
Deborah Flora, candidate for Congressional District 4, her website, deborahflora.com, deborahflora.com. Thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill show.
Thank
it's great to see you again.
Always good to be back in the studio. Thank you, Jeff.
I've known Deborah for years. She has absolutely been in the fight at the grassroots level, particularly on education, school choice, and parental rights. And I appreciate the work she has done. All right, we'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Lots of text messages coming in about Deborah Flora. Bill, what do you think of her?
Oh, I like her a lot.
We've known Deb for years.
Yeah, I really like her.
A polling showing that Lauren Boebert locked in about 40% of the vote at this point. So not a majority, but when you've got 5 other people in the race dividing up 60%.
Yeah, that gets a little tougher.
That's I don't think.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I do think that given a different set of circumstances, her chances would be much greater. I'm not saying she doesn't have a chance. She absolutely does, and I love to see all the support for her. But it's more challenging once Lauren got in the race. I think personally, I thought her odds were much, much higher until Lauren entered the race, and then it made it much difficult. But Lauren made it more difficult for everybody, not just Deborah.
Oh yeah,
she made it more difficult for everybody.
When Jerry was here,
Yeah.
We had the same conversation with Jerry Sonnenberg.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if it was necessarily Lauren getting into the race as it was her ability to overcome some of those personal challenges early on, because
and the bank account.
The bank account helps. She overcame those challenges, but also this is an interesting dynamic. And I've heard this from a number of people, Billy, that Donald Trump's conviction got them so frustrated and angry with the direction of DC. They want bomb throwers. Now it's time. Send in the sharp elbows. What they've done to Donald Trump was so unfair. I'm ready to just blow the whole thing up. Put Lauren back in. Let's go.
Yeah.
I heard that from a few different people.
Oh, I understand. And the weird part about that is, it's again, I don't want to say this is Lauren per se. I'm not saying this is her, but the idea that you want the elbow throwers and the bomb throwers, the problem I have with that is they are not usually good at the actual governing. So if you're assuming
and to that
they're going to
point,
fix anything,
Deborah's, I told her afterwards that in that message that Lauren Boebert had 2 years to work with Donald Trump, did not secure the border.
Oh yeah.
I was like, where's that been? I haven't heard that at all. That's a really compelling message.
Oh, it's a really compelling message. It really is. It's like it's like the time in which, and I hear this from a lot of people, the idea that, oh my gosh, during the COVID, everything was shut down and we changed all these rules for our elections and we did the vaccine and we did all this other stuff. And the weird thing is that I think people forget who was the president at that time. And they keep blaming it on the Democrats when there were a whole lot of people with R's behind their name. One of the things they talk about is, I mean, you accurately talk about changing the game and changing the rules, but some of those rule changes in the voting processes that we talk about were done by Republicans.
Or were done and the Republicans didn't fight them hard enough. I've heard this from Republican attorneys that they saw those changes taking place during COVID and chose to engage after the election with their fights.
And you can't do that because
that was a big mistake.
Oh, it's a huge mistake. And here's the reason why. And we can just talk about it in a simple, we just crowned the Boston Celtics as the newest NBA champions, 18 titles in a row. The Dallas Mavericks can't come out and complain about the rules now. They can't go, wait, we don't like that traveling thing. That didn't work out well for us. They can't complain. They agreed to the rules and they stepped on the court.
Your
Same
alternative voice is fantastic. You do that all the time. He sounds like he has a little, it's like a frog showed up.
I have like,
it'd be great for an animated frog.
Oh, I do like, okay, on the FM side of things, I got about 12, 13 voices I do. That just the weird little things that
Let's hear some more of them, Billy.
No, I'm not going to be the performing monkey today. At least not without tips. If we can do some sort of Venmo or something, give some tips, I'll do the funny voices. Yeah, but I'll do that a lot.
I do want to talk to you all about QC Kinetics. I've gotten to know this organization. Lovely, wonderful people, because they're helping people fight back against their joint pain without having to go under the knife. And it's summertime. Come on, people. Life in Colorado is awesome this time of year, but not so much if you've got joint pain in your knees or shoulders. The good news is that QC Kinetics is here with the most advanced treatments using regenerative medicine. What does that mean? Well, they harness the healing power from your own body to restore and repair your damaged joint tissue. So many of our listeners have had this done, and they're so grateful they're pain-free. QC Kinetics can get you moving again, too, with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. This is the future of medicine, and their local medical professionals at QC Kinetics can get you started with a free consultation. QC Kinetics has clinics in Aurora and Superior. If your shoulder shoulder or back or knee or elbow is always hurting, if it hurts to walk or lift something, you need to check this out and you can get lasting relief. Do it now so you can enjoy the Colorado summertime like you deserve. Next generation joint pain relief is here at QC Kinetics, 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986. Get a free consultation, 303-900-8986 or QCkinetics.com. So when we come back in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking to Brad Yellen with United Hatzalah. Look, when we were hosting a big event last December at CCU titled CCU for Israel, we wanted to raise money to save Jewish lives. And we found out, I didn't know about these guys, but they were the first responders. So when that attack happened on October 7th, they saved a lot of lives. And this is like a totally innovative emergency response organization that has come up with ways to get to people so fast. So we'll be talking about how they're saving lives in Israel, what happened on October 7th, what they saw, how people can be supportive of them, all that and more. United Hatzalah is the organization.
And this is
Just
really
amazing.
cool, given the conversation we had earlier with Rich Sokol, that maybe some of those, okay, I'm going to take a point of personal privilege here. Maybe some of those asshats that spent their time out in front of the Regent's house should listen up. Maybe this will help you and give you a little bit of understanding and perspective before you stand out in front of someone's house on Father's Day and scream about what individuals are doing. Perhaps you should have a little bit deeper understanding of what the people you're supporting are involved in first. Before
guess what?
Yeah.
When United Hatzalah responds to somebody hurt, they don't ask them if they're Jews or Palestinians.
That's weird. You know,
They
it's almost like
just
they care.
help people.
Yes, which isn't always the same on the other side, as we have seen the behavior.
No.
That's weird.
In fact, they're pretend journalists holding hostages. I mean,
Yes.
it's just.
And I saw
it is
another
nutty.
one. I saw another one they were talking about that had some connections with some U.S. media companies as well that's been involved in very pro-Hamas stuff. This is just dirty.
Lovely.
Yeah. Again, are you surprised? No, not in the least.
Not
in the least.
surprised at all. So United Hatzalah, this great ambulance response organization, will be joining us just in the top of the hour. Give us a text message and tell us what you think of Deborah, Flora. Have you voted yet in Congressional District 4? I have voted. Check the box, but that's going to remain a secret. I don't get
Hey.
involved in Republican primaries because they're all
That's
kind of my
smart.
friends.
Yeah, and that's smart. And
Are you in Congressional District 4? Did you get both ballots, Billy?
Yeah, I got both, and that's kind of the fun part is I let you all choose the teams, and then I figure out what happens after that. That's the easiest way, man. Do
But
it
the
that way.
Republican one is the fun one to play
Yeah, it
in
is.
this
Yeah, it
one.
is.
Otherwise, I don't know if it's that competitive of a primary on the Democrat side.
No.
I don't know. All right. Brad Yellen coming up next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, crazy. It's a beautiful, greatest country in history, and we're getting a whole another morning of engaging discussions, a critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. It's 9 a.m. Let's grab another cup of coffee, Denver, and dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after the news, you're going to love this organization, United Hatzalah. We're going to talk with Brad Yellen. He's the West Coast Regional Director. Listen to this. These were the people that ran into gunfire, not fighting back on October 7th when Israel was attacked, but saving lives. They saved countless lives that day. They're an emergency medical response team, and they serve everybody, Israeli, Palestinian. If you're hurt, they help people out there. They've got some incredible stories. And when we were planning CCU for Israel, we decided this was the organization we were going to raise $1 million in support of. It was a fantastic night. You're going to get to hear from them coming up just after the news. Let's check in with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. 62 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the mid 70s today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
And it's about time we get back to what I call Reagan Republicanism. Now, I was at a forum and Lauren Boebert called him Zombie Reagan. I think that's an incredible slam on one of the best presidents we've had.
CD4 is heating up, and Flora in studio with Jeff and Bill last hour to remind voters that she's the best candidate in Congressional District 4.
Anyone who's listening who has not voted, this is their opportunity to make a decision between more of the dysfunction and the division that's going on in Washington, D.C., keeping the Republican coalition from actually doing anything, doing the work of the people, securing the border, getting our economy back on track, or coalescing around our campaign so we can have new principled leadership that will unite us, build a coalition, and get the work done.
Flora said that she's a constitutional conservative who understands the voters, the district, and solutions to all these problems created by the radical left. It's all about principles and policy.
You feel good enough or courageous enough to come in front of someone's house on Father's Day and protest in front of their house, but yet you won't show your face. What does that say?
Rich Sokol experienced the chaos creating Hamas supporters firsthand. They protested in front of CU Regent Ilana Spiegel's home on Sunday. He lives in the neighborhood, and Sokol joined the fellas last hour.
So this was a message of pure, unadulterated hate. This is a message saying that Israel should not exist. And if you're Jewish, the Jewish people don't have a right to a homeland like any other people. So that's got to affect the mind of every person, every Jew. It should, bother every person, Jewish or not. This is blatant anti-Semitism. This is pure hatred. And this was wholly inappropriate.
Sokol and other neighbors pushed back and wore patriotic clothes and sang the Star-Spangled Banner, had a few speeches, and celebrated the red, white, and blue along with Israel and our relationship with Israel.
I just hear a boom. Everything around us just shakes and they're screaming and the houses just go up in flames. You can just feel everything going hot. Ashes are everywhere. It was one of the scariest experiences.
2 people are dead following that Monday afternoon plane crash in Steamboat. It crashed in the West Acres mobile home park and burst into flames. Nobody on the ground was hurt. The plane was on its way to Ogden, Utah from Longmont. The Biden administration is rolling out an executive action plan to grant temporary amnesty for hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants. The White House announced this morning that it would be launching a so-called parole in place plan for illegal immigrant spouses of U.S. citizens. This is only the beginning.
An unrelenting stream of immigration, nonstop.
The man who opened fire in a Colorado Springs nightclub in 2022 will be sentenced today in the federal case. Anderson Aldrich is serving life in prison on state charges for gunning down 5 people and injuring 22 others. Dr. Robert Epstein, who voted for Biden and an expert on Google and other big tech companies interfering in elections, including the 2020 election, on Louder with Crowder Monday.
Trump won only 5 out of the 13 swing states, which is why he lost in the Electoral College. When we factor Google out in 2020, Trump would have won 11 of the 13 swing states and easily won in the Electoral College. Moreover, we calculated that Google shifted at least 6 million votes to Joe Biden, whom I supported, by the way, although I regret that. But the point is, Google shifted at least 6 million votes to Joe Biden. Think about that. By how many votes did Joe Biden win the popular vote? Well, I think it was around 7 million or so. If you factor Google out of that election, the popular vote itself would have been virtually tied.
Go to americasdigitalshield.com for all this information. It's pretty amazing. Rockies fall to the Dodgers 9-5. Back at it tonight at 6:40 at Coors. Game 5, Stanley Cup Finals tonight.
It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.
They beat the Mavericks 106-88 last night in the NBA Finals. And congratulations to Parker, Colorado's own Derek White wins his first title. A lot of his teeth knocked out along the way in the playoffs, but it was worth it.
Man, this is what we work for. I mean, I'll lose all my teeth for a championship, and so I'll get it fixed, and I'm going to enjoy this one.
Yes, he will. 58 in Westminster, 59 in Lone Tree, 62 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Tuesday, Power Hour coming up. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The 710 5-day forecast, much cooler weather for Denver and the Front Range over the next 48 hours as a cold front comes in out of the northern Rockies. We'll stay in the 70s today and only going to be on the low end of the 70s tomorrow. So a good 20 to 25 degrees colder than the last few days. Isolated afternoon and evening thunderstorms possible today and on Wednesday. Warming back to the 80s Thursday through Saturday with afternoon and evening thunderstorms. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
So imagine it's the morning of October 7th. You're living in Israel. And all of a sudden, all the phones start going off. We're under attack. People are injured. Most people ran and hid that day. United Hatzalah did not. They responded. They are the largest independent, nonprofit, fully volunteer emergency medical service organization providing the fastest emergency medical service throughout Israel. And get this, they do it completely free of charge. It's available around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, with more than 7,000 volunteers. They saved countless lives on October 7th. While the bullets were flying, they were rescuing. Joining me in studio is Brad Yellen. He's the Western Regional Director for United Hatzalah. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So let's talk, first of all, what happened that day. We'll get into the details about United Hatzalah, but you came to my attention on October 7th. I think you probably did to a lot of people. You were responding and saving lives that day. Let's talk about October 7th.
Well, first you have to understand the day. I mean, it was planned by Hamas because it was a holiday. Everything was quiet. It was one of the holiest holidays of the year. Simchas Torah, fathers dancing with their sons, with the Torah, and it was Shabbat, and everything was, just a joyous mood. And the night before, everyone was dancing. They get up early in the morning, ready to pray, ready to dance, and all this. And our dispatch, as you can imagine, there's not a lot of activity on Shabbat and on holidays. People aren't driving around in Israel. Religious, also the less religious people celebrate at this time. And so we had a minimal staff in dispatch, and all of a sudden calls are coming in, and the lines just start blowing up with calls that are from like a freak show. There was a mother that said, listen, there's terrorists around, and I just want to let you know I live at this address, and I'm putting my child in a wash machine. I'm hiding my child. That so know that I'm going to go out and see what I can do, but so you can find my child. That's where I'm hiding, hopefully in safety. I mean, these are the kinds of calls coming into dispatch, and so people were woken out of their beds. It was like 6:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, running into dispatch. Generally, people that are follow Shabbat and all the rules, they don't, drive or anything like that. But when it comes to saving a life, that's the highest value. You break Shabbat, and our volunteers, whether religious or not religious, Arab or Christian, they're ready to go. So they went out.
I want to say, jump on that point. You have volunteers that are Arabs within United Hatzalah saving Jewish lives.
Yeah, I mean, we have all the populations in Israel are represented. We not only save anyone's lives, it doesn't matter. We don't, see if they have signs of being Jewish or something like that. Right. Before we have Jews saving Arabs and Arabs saving Jews. Our population of volunteers are also from all groups within Israel.
And let's talk about the type of medical care that you provide. So on that day, for instance, you're treating gunshot victims. You're treating victims of explosives, of knifing, of rape, of all that stuff. You all are out there on the front lines working alongside the military too?
Yeah, I mean, we were, the military gave us guidance. Sometimes we listened to them and sometimes didn't, because they basically said you shouldn't go in. And, our organization was built to have a little bit of chutzpah and break rules if you needed to save a life. And so I'll just tell you just one story I saw recently. And that was, there was a frantic father that called one of our volunteers. His daughter was in that Nova Festival and got a call and called one of our volunteers. And he went in with an ambulance, and as he was driving towards that area, there was a Hamas pickup truck with 10 terrorists starting shooting at him. He's like turned white, and he says, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to save a life before my own's taken.
Hamas was shooting your ambulances.
Yeah, there was ambulances throughout that got shot at, but this one in particular, this guy went very early, and he ran into a Shin Bet guy who was like the Israeli FBI. And he said, not a good idea. And he said, listen, I'm running in. I'm going to save some Jewish lives, or whoever lives, that I can save. And this father, his voice was ringing in his mind, and he stepped on it and went in over to the Nova Festival. There was dead people all over and everyone was hiding. And he said, listen, I work with United Hatzalah. Anyone that needs help, I'm here. Jump into this, and we're going to go. And if you don't, I'm just going to leave. I'll go to another site. And they had about 10 people jumped out of hiding and came into the ambulance. He drove off to go back to where we had field hospitals starting to be set up. And then he went back and forth, different routes. He himself saved upwards of 100 people. And there was he said, if it wasn't for United Hatzalah making decisions to put themselves at risk, there would have been upwards of another 1,000 people killed.
Wow, another 1,000 people because they were willing. You always watch these movies where the medics are under fire. We were watching the D-Day movie the other day with Tom Cruise, Saving Private Ryan. You have the medics, they're saving lives, and bullets are flying all around them. And you're just thinking, what kind of person has the courage to do that? And what also gets me, Brad, about this is when you raise kids, early on when they're young, they hear sirens and they get scared, right? It's very loud and everybody pulls over and big fire trucks are going by, big ambulances. But you train your kids that those are the helpers, to not be scared, because the helpers are going in to help people. And it changes the kid's perspective, and when I hear these stories about guys driving in while being shot at by Hamas to save lives, it's a level of courage that I think very few of us will ever see or experience, or very few of us ever even have that level of courage to be able to do that. Remarkable. Let's talk about the volunteers. Who are these people that serve in United Hatzalah?
They come from all backgrounds. That we have plumbers, electricians, we have doctors and nurses. They are working in their jobs. We don't pay them. They actually pay for their own gas money and whatnot. And they, after they start saving lives out there, this is what drives them. And these are the heroes in the society. You mentioned kids and their perceptions. I will tell you, we have a holiday called Purim, and people dress up in costume. And literally thousands of kids around the country dress up as United Hatzalah volunteers on that day every year. Because they're like the superheroes in Israel, these volunteers.
And so they work in other capacities, and what their phone goes off and they need to respond to something. So let's talk broader, not just October 7th, but somebody has a heart attack, somebody has a stroke, somebody falls down and breaks their hip. They're working nearby as a plumber, their phone goes off and they respond to it.
If I asked you had a neighbor, how long would it take for ambulance services to come over there?
Out in Elizabeth, where we live, it would be about 25, 30 minutes.
Right. So in Israel, and you could think even in Denver, in the city area, it'd still take 8 minutes, 20 minutes, some range. Our response time in Jerusalem and major cities is 90 seconds.
Wow. Because it's somebody next door, essentially, right?
Because we have people, you think of Uber, right? So before Uber came onto the scene, we were using GPS technology when it was on a flip phone. We realized it was there, and we did some research and whatnot, talked to some developers, and we created Uber for EMS, for emergency response, before even the smartphone came out. They came out the same year we developed this technology, the smartphone.
And you guys do this for free, right? You treat some, like I've literally run into family members that are like, don't call the ambulance. I don't want to pay $10,000 to ride to the nearest hospital. I'll just drive myself. We have one member, Richard Holtorf, got shot by his own brother, drove himself to the hospital, and he almost passed out along the way. But you guys provide this type of service. How do you do that?
We have generous supporters that understand the value of, want to be a part of saving a life. They're our partners, the supporters of our work, have are true partners. It was interesting. Eli Beer, our founder, went to the biggest rabbi in the world, and he was friendly with him. He passed away about a year ago. His name's Rav Chaim Kanievsky. And he said to him, maybe you can give me a blessing. He said, could you just find me one supporter that can give us like our budget? And then I could just totally focus on saving lives, work on operations. I'm running around the world trying to raise money so we can provide free service and have as many volunteers as possible. And the rabbi said, God forbid that you should have thousands and thousands and thousands of supporters, because who in their lifetime is able to save a life? But by giving you guys funding, they are a full partner in saving a life. And is there a bigger mitzvah? It says in the Talmud that saving a life is like saving a world. So,
and help me understand why you would save Palestinian lives. You're in war with them. Hamas's charter says, the eradication of Jews across the world, and you're willing to save Palestinian lives?
We save lives from all backgrounds. We just look, that's a human being. Let's see if we can save a life.
Is there a similar element in Palestine today?
If they're shooting at us, if they're shooting at us, we're not saving lives. But if it's an innocent victim, then we'll do our best.
Wow. We're talking with Brad Yellen. He's the Western Regional Director of United Hatzalah. They're an emergency service in Israel that ran towards the bullets, literally, on October 7th and saved thousands of lives that day. Remarkable organization. We'll continue with our conversation with you. I want to talk to you about Dr. Mike and Rocky Mountain Dental Group. With all the work I've had done to my teeth, believe me, finding a good dentist makes all the difference. I'd like to talk to you about Dr. Mike and Rocky Mountain Dental Group. He helps people like you and me look and feel amazing by providing the best dental care available. See for yourself all the 5-star reviews at RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. Here's one. I've been going there for over 20 years. Dr. Mike and his entire staff are outstanding. In fact, the same person always cleans my teeth. If you need an awesome dentist, Dr. Mike is your guy. If your gums are receding, it's critical to address this issue promptly. Dr. Mike is a top-tier expert in the Chow pinhole surgical technique. This method requires no cutting, no sutures, and virtually no downtime. The procedure involves a small pinhole in the tissue and a gentle repositioning of the gum. Schedule a free consultation with Dr. Mike to discover all the benefits of this revolutionary procedure. Call 303-233-1335. That's 303-233-1335, or visit RockyMountainDentalGroup.com, RockyMountainDentalGroup.com to book your free consultation today. We'll continue our conversation with United Hatzalah next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in Berlin, I'm Trent Murray, and here are the top stories we're following. Russian President Vladimir Putin is traveling to North Korea. His first visit to the secretive nation in 24 years. Chris Gilbert has the details.
While it's Vladimir Putin's first trip to Pyongyang in 24 years, he's not expected to be there even 24 hours. But in that time, he is set to meet his counterpart Kim Jong-un, and along with his delegation, which includes his ministers of space, defense and energy, sign a new partnership agreement, which is set and expected to focus on security matters, boosting suspicions in Washington that Pyongyang is supplying munitions for Russia's long-running conflict in Ukraine in exchange for financial support and assistance with its space program from Moscow. Vladimir Putin said ahead of the trip that he is intending to set a trade relationship with North Korea that cannot be touched by the West.
Multiple evacuation orders have been issued in New Mexico as a wildfire burns out of control in the south of the state. The fire is burning near the village of Ruidoso, about 180 miles south of Albuquerque. Local fire authorities overnight said the town, which is home to 7,000 people, is in danger from the fire, which has now burned over 5,000 acres. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Trent Murray in Berlin on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show with Brad Yellen. So what's your West Coast Regional Director of United Hatzalah? This is the organization that under heavy gunfire on October 7th against Hamas raced to the rescue of both Jews and Palestinians and saved thousands of lives that day when Hamas was attacking. It's a remarkable organization. My wife and I support. My son donates to United Hatzalah. And last December, along with CCU and some other great people, we raised $1 million to support them. This is a great organization. Billy, you had a question for him.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about, we talked off the air, Brad, that you were in Israel back in January. Can you talk to us about how the people are doing? What's it like day-to-day life? And how do people continue to function knowing that you're involved in such a conflict with Hamas that easily could become a regional conflagration? How do the people day to day go about their lives dealing with that? And what's the kind of anxiety and pressure that you're hearing and seeing?
You know, the people there are extremely resilient and understand this is a part of the reality of just being surrounded by enemies that for some reason it's beyond nature, because the Israelis are such a loving people and accepting people. You can see that in United Hatzalah that we want to save everybody, and we, find reasons to try to bring people together. And I think that in general, that's the nature of the Jewish people, despite the anti-Semitism through all the centuries, where people that care about people and want peace. And you can see that in the efforts of Israelis from the beginning of the state. Like, how do we resolve this? What do we have to do to get along with our neighbors? And just nothing seems to work.
What would happen in Palestine if there's an injured Jew on the ground? How would the Palestinians treat them?
Well, how about a very healthy Jew?
Right.
So, we saw what happened, in Hamas. And
right. They would kidnap them, take them, murder them, right? Isn't that what would happen? I don't know. I'm not from there. I'm guessing that would say. What I'm trying to do is compare and contrast with how you would treat.
We educate. We have Arab doctors, Muslim doctors.
But in Israel,
free education often for scholarships abound for these populations. We want them to integrate and be strong contributors.
But just look at the cultural difference. In Israel, you run into an injured Palestinian, and an organization named United Hatzalah is going to provide care and service for them. You end up with an injured Jew in Palestine, you're going to end up, in a taken hostage somewhere. The contrast in civilization and culture is so stark, and it's right up against one another. I want to ask you about the history of this. How did United Hatzalah get started?
So, I just wanted to, Eli Beer, our founder, when he was 7 years old, he saw a bus blow up right in front of him in his neighborhood. And that put an impression. And he said one day, because he couldn't respond, he didn't have the skills, he was scared. And he walked away from that. He said, one day, I hope I can save one life. And when he was 16, he had the opportunity or 15, to start volunteering on an ambulance. And he kept taking records. Here it took 15 minutes, 22 minutes. He was like a student. And he always paid attention how long it took to get there. And one time, and his father would say, hey, did he save a life? Because he remembered that was his goal. He wanted to save a life. He says, we get there, we help people, but it's not like we get there fast enough to save a life. If a kid's choking or a heart attack, every minute you have a 10% less of survival. So if it takes, 15 minutes, you can imagine the result. So so it was a source of frustration. One time there was an event, there was a kid choking on a hot dog, and they were the closest ambulance, and there was a lot of traffic, and it took about 22 minutes to get there. And when they got there, the mother was hysterical, saying, how could you killed my son? It took you an hour to get here. And they went up, and the kid was completely blue, but they started working CPR, and there was a doctor walking his dog nearby, he saw the ambulance pull up, and he ran up the stairs too, and they gave way for the doctor, and he started working on it. They worked on it for a good long time. And after some time, they said, just bring a white sheet. There's nothing we can do. And, he calls that I don't know, after October 7th, maybe it changed, but he called that like the worst day of his life. Just seeing a boy needlessly die, because that doctor was within a block. And if that doctor had the information, he could have saved this kid's life. It was needless death for a young child. I think maybe around the 6-year-old child. And he had this idea that if just the doctor would have known, how do we communicate to people in a neighborhood that if they had the skills that they could respond? And he and his EMT friends, he got them all together and he says, listen, let's use beepers or whatever. We'll just have the ambulance company inform us in the neighborhood, inform us of the emergency. And so he went in and he said, listen, I have this idea. We're going to cover this neighborhood, me and my friends. If we're on shift, off shift, just give us the information. And he said, kid, listen, we know what we're doing around here. Maybe you have too much time on your hands. Maybe you can work at a falafel shop or something like that. But we got it under control. And he basically kicked him out of his office in about 2 minutes. It was very short. So he said, you know what? The next person going to America, let's get some police scanners and we'll bust into their lines. And so he took scanners and they started this kind of underground, dispatch. And when they would hear what was going on, if it ever came from their area, they would report to their own friends. So you could see like the organization was built on this kind of technology, which we call chutzpah in Israel.
That's good. I like that technology.
And
chutzpah.
And that's part of the DNA of United Hatzalah. And so when people, on October 7th, they said no helicopters, no fly zone. And we made a decision that if we don't have helicopters going there, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to die. It's just, there's only a limited amount that you can do in a field hospital. And we had a guy who was literally dancing with this kid, and he got this call and he had to explain to his family how he's going in. And helicopters are not exactly safe in such scenarios.
Yeah, when they're firing rockets.
Yeah. And, he gave, his kids goodbye, knowing that it's possible that he might not see him again. Wow. These are the kinds of decisions people were making.
I love the idea of asking for forgiveness instead of permission when it comes to saving lives. That's kind of one of my mantras in life as well. I got 2 questions for you. First, have you got more people signed up since October 7th?
Yeah, we've had a lot of people come forward. They want to volunteer. It's a high priority of the organization to train and equip more volunteers, because the way it works, maybe you've been in an Uber in a busy area at a time that you couldn't get a car.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that they're spread out throughout the country. We're stronger in some of the cities. We need more of the outlying areas, more volunteers. We're at 7,000 volunteers. Hopefully in the coming years, we'll get up to double that even. So
are you building it in America?
There are examples, there was a lieutenant governor. There is a lieutenant governor that went to saw our dispatch and was blown away. And he's from Iowa, and he understands out in the sticks.
Yeah. It takes a while.
It takes a long time for an ambulance to get there, and we have to find ways. I mean, that's really the concept. We didn't really touch on this, but the main thing that United Hatzalah does is bridge the time between the time of the incident and when an ambulance gets there. Like, how do you cut that time so someone can start working on CPR or doing Heimlich maneuver? How do you stop the bleed? How do you stop the process until an ambulance gets there? We have our own ambulances as well, but our main thing is to get there as fast as possible. So we have what we call ambucycles, for example. So I take a moment and say that Ellie B, our founder, he says that, he was thinking, if I ever choke, I'm going to call for pizza, because pizza delivery people seem to get through traffic a lot faster than the cars. The cars and ambulances are stuck. And these guys are weaving through to make sure you get hot pizza so they can get a good tip. So he said, if they're doing that to deliver pizzas, we need to do this to save lives. And so he put a big box, instead of 5 pizzas in the back, we have medical equipment. And we go right through traffic in order to get there fast. And that cut down times dramatically in cities.
Wow. Now, Brad Yellen, West Coast Regional Director for United Hatzalah of Israel. I want to delve into something a little more personal. We were talking about this, you and I, off air during the last break. And the question I have for you, and you can demur and say no, but the reaction that you have and other members of Israel to the protests that we see going on in America. It looks like a rising tide of anti-Semitism. And the part that bothers me the most personally is that it is based on a level of ignorance. The people that are supporting Hamas and the terrorists don't understand who and what they are supporting. My biggest example, and you and I discussed this off air, is the use of Zionist as a pejorative. Zionism is just meaning that you believe Israel has the right to exist. And turning around and inside of a protest, yelling at people that, oh my gosh, you're a Zionist. Anybody yelling that, in my mind, is either advocating for the genocide of Israel or is dumb enough to not understand the words coming out of their pie hole. What is it like for you and the Jewish community dealing with all of these protests that are so personal, but in many times so ignorant?
Yeah. It in my lifetime, as I haven't lived through world wars and things of that nature. And you have to, as a Jewish person, you wonder, like, how is it possible that you would have Nazis backed up by a civilization? I mean, we're not talking about, barbaric and dark ages kind of times. How do you have a population of educated people back the Nazis? It's hard to understand for all my time, and then you see Israel being attacked by Hamas, and Hamas is ISIS. ISIS is Hamas. If someone could explain the difference between the two in terms of their goals and aspirations, if you could use a positive word in their acts, I don't know. It's hard to understand. So you say, okay, so this one, at least everyone's got this one clear, right? On college campuses everywhere, you have to have it clear. If Israel is taking out, in response, in a defensive act, taking out ISIS, let's just call them, so it's clear in everyone's mind, isn't that a good thing? How could you have a complaint? Like, shouldn't the world want terrorists eliminated? And shouldn't people want, Israel's given so much to the world as an example of a democratic society in a very difficult neighborhood.
Western civilization.
Yeah. And what it's done in medicine and technology that's given us the conveniences and the life-saving advances. Everyone should be so thankful and would want a place like Israel to thrive and hopefully spread their message and their focus on being a loving country, on being a place that just wants the betterment for the human beings. Why wouldn't we want more of that? I don't really get it. And why would you support ISIS?
Yeah.
It's a little bit mind-boggling to see this going on. And then these people, it's hard to believe they know what they're supporting.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Brad. And I agree with you 110%. And the problem I have with the individuals out there protesting, the people that took time out of their Sunday away from their family and their fathers to protest in front of the house of a CU regent, I've got a problem, because the individuals that you are supporting, the reason this conflict started is because Hamas attacked not military targets inside of Israel, but civilian targets, civilian innocent targets. And those are the people, when you're standing outside of the regent's house and chanting, those are the people you're supporting. Just a little bit of checking yourselves, people, here. The idea that you're protesting the oppressor of Israel is not what's happening in this conflict. What you're doing is supporting the terrorists that came into Israel and killed hundreds to over 1,000. That's who you're supporting, and kidnapped several hundred innocents, including some from a concert. That's who you're cheering for.
Yeah, mind-boggling.
It is. It's absolutely mad.
We're getting text messages here of people that want to volunteer. They want to join up and be a part of what you're doing with United Hatzalah. By the way, you can go to their website, israelrescue.org, israelrescue.org, if you want to learn more about them. But how can people be a part of what you're doing from America?
You know, our organization, we're trying to serve as a model for the world in Israel and put to bed and continue to advance. So from America, you know, the primary way is really through supporting and, adding volunteers, adding equipment. There's, defibrillators we need protective vests. One of the questions asked was, what's the mood in Israel and whatnot. And when I was there, even in January, they were pretty resigned to the fact that this thing's going to expand to up north. And that's really the
Hezbollah.
concern.
When you say up north, Hezbollah, and that means Iran.
Yes. And, the military capability of Hamas versus Hezbollah is, they're not comparable at all. The reach of Hezbollah is throughout the country, missiles, guided missiles. And so the threat is great. And we are doing our very best to prepare. I mean, when you have a drone, they could knock out something like a cell tower. So then what are we supposed to do as an emergency organization that relies on cell towers? So we're going out, we're buying a lot of equipment to have multiple backup communication systems, radio, whatnot, where we're not totally dependent. We're making sure equipment spread out throughout different areas, because they could be cut off areas where they make it so it's not possible to travel so well from place to place. So we're taking a lot of steps out of concern, and it's been heating up, if you've been following the news, very much so nowadays. And, something that I think people don't realize on campus as well is that the Israeli people, people ask about, the Israeli people are firmly behind, the government's actions. They want that the terrorists are taken care of and there can be peace in Israel. I mean, looking in the north, how many people are displaced? Something 700,000 or something. A huge numbers of people are displaced in the northern border that are now living in hotels. They can't function in their normal lives. That's not so functional. And the population. I saw a study, a Pew Research study from May 30th. That's pretty recent, right? And it comes out that less than 20% of the population are feeling that the government's gone too far. And included in that 20% are Arab survey participants.
Wow.
So,
it's all the way. It's all the way at this point.
Right. Yeah. So in terms of if you support a democracy, right? So don't you think that the people should have a say? It should be, I would think that the people and the government should have a say. We need to go, they are holding hostages. I think that we have to do what we need to bring back the hostages. They had the choice whether or not they would walk into this with us. But when you fight with a big guy and a big guy hits back, I mean, you can't say, you threw 10 punches.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to punch back.
Well, you do have your say in Palestine back in 2006. I think that was the last time they had free and fair elections. Talking with Brad Yellen. He's the West Coast Regional Director of United Hatzalah. We're going to continue this conversation about how you can support and save Jewish lives. Look, this is one of those rare organizations. We spent a lot of time at CCU looking for who we were going to support, who can pull from Jewish supporters, who can pull from Christian supporters, who is not about buying bullets. Although there are some people, when we put on CCU for Life, they're like, I'm happy to buy bullets. But they're like, no, let's save lives. Who is saving lives in Israel? It's not going to be political. It's bottom line, whether you're Palestinian, Jewish, Christian, It's about saving lives. We'll talk with more in just a second. I want to talk to you about advanced hair restoration. You know, our radio show was rated by Westward as the top talk radio show in Denver. Well, advanced hair restoration, our brothers and sisters over there, the top hair restoration company in Denver, Colorado by Westward as well. Summer is a great time to look and feel your best, but I'm not talking about your abs or tans. Guys, I'm talking about your hair. Restore that bald spot. Reverse your receding hairline. Add volume to thinning and during Advanced Hair's once yearly summer savings event. Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment begins to regrow your own natural hair the very next day, and they guarantee your new hair will grow. There is absolutely no one I trust more than Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. Take advantage of your flexible summer schedule and get the most for your hair for your dollar. Advanced Hair's summer sales event is on for a limited time, so get the details and schedule your free consultation today. Give them a call, 720-459-HAIR. By the way, if you watch us on YouTube or Twitter or Rumble, you can see some of their great work here. 720-459-HAIR. One-day treatment, life-changing results with Advanced Hair. Your new hair is guaranteed to grow. Check out the incredible before and afters and take advantage of their best offer. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. We'll continue with the frontline rescuers in the battle against Hamas. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us live in studio, you can see his smiling face, Brad Yellen. You just got to go to YouTube or X or Rumble and type in 710KNUS. That's 710KNUS. Brad, let's go back to the daily work that United Hatzalah does. We're talking about this organization that was there on the front lines when October 7th happened. They saved thousands of lives. They're rescuers. They're a great organization to support, whether you're Muslim, Christian, or Jewish, because they're just about serving people and rescuing people. But you guys do a lot of daily work.
Right. You know, in some ways, we're at war every day. I mean, we fight against Mother Nature. People are, you know, could choke or have a heart attack or anything every single day. We go out to over 2,000 calls. So our volunteers leave their beds in the middle of the night, leave their jobs in the middle of a meeting, whatever it takes, and they go out and save a life, and they're next door. And so they're able to go and save a life and get started before the ambulance comes. And, you know, that is our pulse. And, you know, that same energy is something we didn't mention, actually. It doesn't happen every day, thankfully. But we also go around the world with relief efforts, like in Ukraine, when people were fleeing Ukraine.
Really?
We set up across the border. We flew people, rescue missions. We brought in medical equipment, humanitarian equipment. Our guys are ready to go. And while people are still figuring out logistic plans, we're already on the ground with field hospitals. So every day we're responding to calls from neighbors, and you know, thankfully, we're very appreciated throughout the society, and we would love it to spread all over the world. There's no reason for it not.
I mean, Bill and I were talking, man, if we could have this in Colorado, in Denver, quick response, you know, and the different challenges, we'd have to change the mindset here in Colorado. But I just go back to that.
I can think about things like in places like, what would happen in certain areas of 5 Points? What would happen in certain areas of low high? And what would happen downtown? What would happen on those instances where you have things that have gotten out of hand post bar, you know, late at nights in downtown? You've got a lot of professionals that could provide some very immediate life-saving training within blocks of those
You go back to that story that he talked about, the
Yeah.
doctor that was out walking his dog, and he's
that's
like,
amazing.
The little kid died because he choked on a hot dog, and it took 20 minutes for the ambulance to get here, and I was downstairs.
Yep, exactly.
Right, and you think about if down the hallway, someone, you know, something was happening. I asked one of you two guys if you would get up and go and save his life.
Right?
You know, so many people are willing to do that. You know, they just need some training, a little bit of equipment. You know,
and to know someone's in danger.
You know, ambulances really don't save lives. It's human beings being there at the right time that saves lives. And that's really the model, this 90 seconds model. There's a book, 90 Seconds, I highly recommend, about Ellie Beer, or our website, israelrescue.org, to find out more. It's an incredible story, incredible work. Our volunteers are great heroes.
United Hatzalah, israelrescue.org. It's been a wonderful show. If you missed any of it, go to 710KNUS to download the podcast. You've been listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Have a good day.